Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today. It's a lovely Tuesday evening. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Thanks so much for being here. I want to especially appreciate those who have liked the live. We're on 19.6K likes right now on TikTok, which is brilliant. Thank you very much, Koboko and Elevation, the Elevation Lab. Thank you, and every other person, but I see more of liking the live and for getting us up. I should clap for you, so let me do that now. Thank you. Brilliant. Eshio. Thanks a lot. So the rest of us, we're not coming on camera, so I'll ask that you please like the live and share. So we have others also participate into this Facebook as well. If you're right here on TikTok, let's do it together. Please click on the heart icon above the image of our guest speaker and kindly like the live and click on the icon, join the team. If you're already a member, just drop a heart to me or a gift. These things help get us to the FYP on TikTok. If you're on YouTube, also please like and share, and you can also give gifts as well. All these things help the algorithm to get others to find us on the app. Thank you very, very much, Elder or Yoruba Intellectual, and we've listened to a number of them over the past weeks. We've listened to Chief Samuel Akintola, we've listened to Chief Bolaige, we've listened to Professor Banji Akintoye, we've listened to Professor Bosede Sofioluwale, and today we'll be listening to Professor Tayo Adesina. I'll tell you about him. If you're in this historical circle, you probably must have heard of him. But if you haven't, don't worry, I'm going to tell you all about him before we listen to him today. But it's a brilliant presentation, and I think it's going to be a blessing to all of us. But again, before we get into all of that, let's do a little housekeeping. Welcome. If you're just joining us on YouTube, Facebook, and here on TikTok, thank you very much for being here. Lovely to have you join us. Welcome. All right, so please don't stop power tapping and sharing. If you're on TikTok or if you're on YouTube, power tapping, just make sure you repeatedly tap on your screen, okay? Let's do that so that way we're liking the live. And you can also write in the comment section if you have anything that comes out at you, or like something really cool that you think you want to share. Feel free to write in the comment section. At the end of this session, we're going to have people come up and then we'll listen to you share your thoughts about the entire stuff. So today we're listening to Professor Olutayo Adesina. And I think the best way, of course, is to read his bio, and then we'll talk about the stuff we're about to listen to, and then we'll listen to him. Fair enough. Professor Olutayo Charles Adesina is a distinguished historian and a prominent figure in Nigerian academia. He's a professor of history at the University of Ibadan, UI, where he has served multiple terms. He is widely recognized for his work in the economic history of West Africa, Nigerian history, and the decolonization of knowledge. Key academic roles and achievements. British Academic Global Professorship. In 2024, he was awarded a prestigious global professorship worth approximately $1 million at the University of Manchester. His project, The Town and Gown Interface, explores how the University College Ibadan shaped the decolonization of social knowledge in the 20th century. He's a fellow of the Nigerian Academy of Letters, FNAL. His international presence includes fellowships at Harvard University, Charles Warren Center, Oxford University, St. Anthony's College, Nehru University in India. He is the current president of the Society of Nigerian Archivists and has been a consultant to the National Archives of Nigeria. Professor Adesina's scholarship often intersects local history with global trends. His primary areas of expertise include economic history. He has written extensively on the indigenous participation in the economy of Western Nigeria and the impact of globalization on African identity. Biographical studies. He is noted for his archaeological approach to biography. using life stories to explain broader historical shifts. Regional security. He is credited with suggesting the name Amotekun for the Western Nigeria Security Network, WNSN. And some of the publications he has written include Nigeria in the 20th Century, History, Governance and Society, published in 2017, Marginality and Crisis, Globalization and Identity in Contemporary Africa, published in 2010, The Terrain Angels Would Fear to Tread, Biographies and History in Nigeria, published in 2020. I think maybe a few things are probably, fantastic stuff overall, but I think something that probably resonates with many of us would be the fact that you won a professorship worth $1 million US, and that he suggested the name Amotekun, right, for the Western Nigeria Security Network. So that's Professor Tayo Adesina. Now, I should tell you about this event. I was actually, I was invited by my mentor to be at this meeting. I actually went, that was a while back. I had to find my way to that conference, and it was very, very good. So just tell you about the conference, and then we can get into the conversation itself. So this event was actually organized by Dawn Commission, that's Development Agenda for Western Nigeria. We've talked a lot about them, and it's important for us to, from time to time consult and see what they're doing, and also understand that whatever it is that they're doing is for the good of all of us, all right? So this was delivered at a Dawn Commission event, and it's titled Bystander Effect. So the event itself is called Yoruba Historical Conversation Lecture. And then what he's talking about is contemporary elites and the bystander effect. Okay? Contemporary elites and the bystander effect. Like I said, it was hosted by the Dawn Commission, Development Agenda for Western Nigeria, and the series is actually called Yoruba Historical Conversation Lecture. I'll tell you something about this and we get deep into it. Okay, let me go back just a bit. This speech is a poignant and critical reflection on the socio-political state of Yoruba society in contemporary Nigeria, delivered by Professor Tayo Adesina. It serves as both a historical audit and a modern-day call to order for the region's leadership and citizens have become passive observers of societal decay. This speech traverses the history of Western Nigeria from the prosperous era of Chief Obafemi Awolowo to the current Japa syndrome and the rise of cybercrime, ultimately calling for a Yoruba grand strategy to restore communal values, work ethics, and economic self-sufficiency. I'd like to enjoy this, but before we get into it, please, wherever you are, YouTube, Facebook, or right here on TikTok, please power tap, share the live. This is a very, very important lecture, and I'm sure it's going to you're going to enjoy every bit of it. So this is Professor Tayo Adesina speaking on the crisis of silence, addressing the bystander effect in Yoruba leadership. Take a listen.
If this were my life.
Well, let me begin with a caveat. I also want to inform my compatriots that this is not a political symposium. You heard that? Yes or no? Okay, but what you don't hear is the fact that it is also a political symposium. You didn't hear that? Okay. Because no matter how historians talk or operate, whatever we say is historical, but at the same time, it is also political. But what it is not is a rabble-rousing movement. I don't want a situation in which I'm going to be quoted and you will say Adesina has said so. Aluta must begin now. That's not the purpose. It is just for our knowledge would also inform developments in society. Because as historians, we are members of society, we are also the teachers of society. And so whatever we do, whatever we say, has not only historical significance, but also contemporary significance. And so that's why today, I am talking about contemporary Yoruba elites and the bystander effect. We all look at certain things in society, and people in society will quickly tell you, "Kí ló kàn ẹ́ ńbẹ̀? Kí ni tiẹ̀ ńbẹ̀?" And that in itself has debarred members of society from participating in other things. And at the end of the day, you hear people saying almost every day, "Má jẹ́ kán rí tí ẹ wí." So if they don't rí tí ẹ wí, ta ni kán rí wí? And that's why everybody is moving back from a lot of things. In the days when we were growing up, we had those we call the Baba Adubos. These Baba Adubos, they are on every corner. They are busy reading newspapers, but they are also seeing everything you are doing. And when you do certain things that is considered an anathema, they take their cane and flog you. And when they flog you, when your parents come in the evening, they tell them, and your parents will still flog you. But all that is gone now. All that is gone because certain developments have precluded them from continuing with the old tradition of Baba Adubo. If you flog these children nowadays, you know they have a spirit and body as strong as the chocolate eclairs. Once you beat them, they die. And then you are in trouble. That ends your Baba Adubo career. So a lot of things have gone. And society is suffering because of these issues. Everybody wants to do daddy, be your own, look after your children. Even the children inside the house, you can't afford to beat them too much. So these are some of the things I'm going to attend to today. And so let's look at contemporary Yoruba elites and what I have called the bystander effect. So I have given you the caveat, but this is my humble attempt as a historian to understand the relationship between tradition and modernity on the one hand, generations, we were very close to those before us. But the children from the 90s, 2000s, are so far from us that you cannot even have a conversation together. You cannot. And so right now, society is working at cross purposes. The younger generation does not want to hear what you want to say. The older generation is not listening to the younger generation because they think what they are saying is balderdash. It's the way it is now. And so how do we begin to reconstruct society that a conversation goes on, not only in the house, but also in the street, on the street, but also in our classrooms? No conversation is going on. So when we teach this generation, there is a popular song now. When you are in the classroom now, this younger generation will kill you with the sear of their eyes. To say what you want to say and get out. And that has a discouraging effect on teachers. And so the teacher will also mumble one or two things and then go out. So learning is not going on in this age. It's not going on. And when we say that, people ask us, okay, the university system, so what are you doing? What are you talking about? We acknowledge that gradually the university system is becoming anachronistic. So unless we go back to the drawing board to begin to re-engage culture, re-engage society, re-engage modernity, we will all just be in the classrooms teaching the younger generation that doesn't want to listen. So until the university system itself begins to understand this issue, then the process for recalibrating society will not begin. And we need to do this. Because today, ASU is on strike. Yes, it's all for the best. But in our days, for ASU to be on strike meant you are debarring us from having the opportunity to knowledge. But today, nobody cares. If ASU is on strike 1 month, 2 months, not the government, not the society, which is a very strange development. And so we are begging society to begin to look at all these issues dispassionately. When I was last head of department, 2 of my 400 level final year students, second semester, dropped out. We were doing their results, putting together their results, and I asked, where are these 2 students? They didn't sit for their exam. They said, no, they left. I said, why? Second semester, 400 level. They said they are now trading in the Republic of Benin. It shows that, well, as far as they were concerned, it's more profitable for them to become traders in Benin Republic than to continue to stay in the classroom in the university. Only God knows how many millions they now have. And then, of course, I'm looking forward to the day they are going to come to the department to come and greet us with their G-Wagons. And their lecturer will go to his, in fact, they will deliberately park near your Toyota that is 35 years old. And then, of course, greet you very well to make sure you see them. Because it is one thing for them to come, it's another thing for you to see them. For how long are we going to, continue to live this kind of life? So, we are here to explore the landscape inhabited by Africa's most educated and resourceful people, the Yoruba of southwestern Nigeria, whether you like it or not. In Africa, Yorubas know they carry last. Anywhere. And so this is being done within the context of a symbiosis of indigenous knowledge, knowledge systems, and modernity. We have continued to retain our indigenous knowledge systems, but we are also modern. So the amalgamation of both, what are we getting from it? I am particularly interested in what I would call the tyranny of the elites. This, of course, concerns public interest and the common good. As Edmund Burke said, and I quote him, all that is necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. End quote. We have at one point or the other been victims of the erratic nature of our elite. Brief background story. And this story concerns Oyo State. I was a citizen of Oyo State until Osun State was carved out from Oyo State on August 27, 1991. And I'm particularly talking to the younger generation. Everybody is just behaving as if we don't notice that things are bad for them. And I tell my children that what they are going through now is even so small compared to what we went through in the 1980s with the introduction of the structural adjustment program. You don't want to experience SAP. It was really very bad. No money, no food, no job, nothing. Some of us who didn't even know Lagos would not go to the embassy. We didn't even know about embassy. But nowadays, you know embassies. At least you run away. In our days, what are you going to do in Lagos? It's not your business. So when we finished NYSC in 1986, there was no job. I'm sure some of the people we graduated together and finished NYSC together in 1986 are still jobless today. Because I was jobless for 5 years, but because I had age on my side, I could still do a lot of things. But in case of so many of them who were already 25 when we finished service, by the time you are unemployed for 5 years, you are already 30. No organization will take you any longer because you are overaged. So if you are crying today that, oh, things are very bad, we also went through it. But why Oyo State is involved in my own matter is this. Just to show you that elites will be elites any day, anytime. So one day, Oyo State, I'm still searching my heart to see how I'm going to forgive Oyo State. They brought out an advert and said they were going to recruit teachers. They used to call them the Central Schools Board or something like that in those days, not Teaching Service Commission. So all of us who were unemployed, maybe about 2,000, 3,000, we showed up at that place. And you know what these people did? We were there for an interview. The panel was there in one big room. The privileged elites, eating groundnuts, biscuits, drinking Coke, and here are 21, 22, 23-year-olds looking for a job. You know what they did? They were calling us in 30 candidates at the same time. And so they put chairs everywhere we all sat down. We expected them to be calling us in one by one. But apparently they had already settled the people they were going to take. We were just mere statistics. And so when 30 of us came in, when my group came in, our own batch of 30, one of them said, yes, you are all welcome. Good morning. Musa, where did River Niger meet River Benue? Somebody else answered. And in 5 minutes, the interview was over. Nobody asked for our names. Nobody asked for our certificates. Nobody wanted to know anything about us. And yet, from that exercise, people were recruited. How did it happen? I knew those who were recruited. And so, if a young man would not be angry with that one, tell me what else will cause you to develop an anger against society. So the elites at any point had always been backward-looking elites. And I have not seen anything in today's elite that says they are different from that set of people. I hope, we people work with documents. I hope one day I will research at the secretariat looking for something else, and I will get the names of those who interviewed us in. Because it was really unfair. It was unfair. So you begin effect when you also tell people whom you think would help you to get a job to say, I went to Ibadan today to attend a teaching service commission interview. They say, because they are also powerless. They're also powerless. So how do we begin to understand elites in our society as serious-minded people? How do we begin to call them to order to say what you are doing is not right? It's not right. So if you do not have somebody who can bring you into service, if you do not have your townsmate who can bring you into service, then you're out there growing old gracefully, looking for an employment. So these are very important things that we must begin to engage in society. I am trying to show of 2 or 3 people, young people are feeling about the elites, about society today. But Dawn Commission is still falling my hands in setting this up, but I'm sure they will get it right. Okay. Like many of my generation, I was a victim of the Nigerian elite's lack of capacity and empathy. Our economy collapsed. And I tell people till now that Nigerians do not have any business with poverty. We are too rich, too endowed to be poor. So, what are they doing? Even if they tell you Nigeria is broke, okay, let us, for the sake of argument, accept that. Nigeria is broke, but some people are still spending dollars. Their children are doing very well. Okay, so why should some people have and we don't have? We pump crude oil every day. We have gold reserves everywhere. Yet some people are exploiting these gold reserves and benefiting from it. So the conclusion about that is Nigerians do not have any business suffering from poverty. So how do we begin to call the elites to order? This is very important. Yes, from the 1980s, we began to feel the effects of the ruling elite's reckless management of the nation. Okay, if we all belong to Nigeria, we understood that. But that region that is our own, how do we begin to utilize the resources of that region to train our children, to make life worth living for our children, and then we ignore what is happening elsewhere? We understood the deep-rooted issues of corruption, ethnicity, insensitivity, and ultimately selfishness. Our elites are selfish. They're very selfish. Add to that the narrative that the Kaduna Mafia was controlling the country because each age has its own narrative. The elites of your region will point to the elite of another region as your problems. When we were growing up, the narrative we had was the Kaduna Mafia. That the Kaduna Mafia was controlling everything, they are stealing everything, they are giving all the positions to their own people. Okay, we believed. We believed. And diverting all our resources and opportunities to the north. We believed. Then, like Paul on the way to Damascus, this truth started to dawn on us. We realized that elites from the north were not different from those from the east or the west. Their approach to nation building was driven by self-interest. Later, I even recognized that elites were not just the educated ones. So when we talk about the elites, it's not the educated ones alone. There were also non-literate elites, traditional leaders, market leaders, both men and women, transport workers, and others. Within their own groups, they have their own elites. So I will not label the westernized top echelon of society, the ones who steer the country in various ways, as the elites. So I'm not talking about the Western educated elites alone, the political elites. At every layer of society, we have our elites. So who are these elites? Elites are the dominant figure in society. They exist at different layers of society. However, in this context, I am interested in examining elites from various layers: political, economic, social, modern, and indigenous. I was convinced that elites of all kinds have, at some point, contributed to society's problems, and of course, its solutions. So don't let's think that they are there to cause problems alone. Some of them have given us solutions. Awolowo was one of those who was one of the modern elites, and we saw the kind of solution he brought to Western Nigeria. I will consider elites as those who sustain their status and influence beyond even the levels of the state. For example, religious elites are not limited to the clergy. They also include alfas, marabouts, traditional priests, seers, witches, and wizards, among others. Don't you even know that among the witches, there are elites? Oh, how did you know that? Are you part of them? So there are elites. Because some of them will tell you, I get my mind, you know. In this discussion, I have recognized elites not only as the educated class, but also as those who operate beyond formal education. At various levels, they are known to hold disproportionate power over society, even outside formal educational structures. They often derive their elite status from political affiliations, wealth, military rank, cultural influence, and social networks and connections, which they use to gain advantage and maintain dominance. At every layer of society, there exists a coterie, a small exclusive group sharing common interests or tastes. For the sake of argument, let us identify our elites. They comprise the educated, political, military, religious, and cultural elites. So if we have a coterie of elites, why is society upside down? Why are they conferring advantages on their own children, close friends, and relatives? Ebenezer Obey apprehended this in the 1970s with his song. I'm sure many of you would not know it, this young generation. You know, so they have identified some people in society to say, we flock together. You are not part of us. It has always been there. And if they use their advantageous positions for us, we will thank them and recognize them that, yes, they are the fathers of society. But there is always the refrain from them to say, these are some of the things we have witnessed at different points in society. Are we victims of bystander effect? And how this affect this? There is what we call elite circulation and distinction. There is always a distinction of being members of the elite. Scholars have identified how elites, disproportionate power and influence are maintained. This may be through violence. If you're a member of the elite, you should be able to use at least one of these approaches. Maybe violence, cunning, being extremely smart, control over institutions, inherited statuses, access to resources, and social networks. Some of our elders belong to clubs, not because they are actually interested in the clubs, but because of the advantages they can derive from being members of those clubs. And so if you are looking for a job, you may even get asked, which club does your father belong to? And you say, oh, he doesn't belong to any club. You already have your answer. You can't be part of us. And so that has created the bystander effect. I will explain this borrowed concept as simply as possible to help us understand why it is invoked in relation to life and existence in Southwest Nigeria. A clear definition linked to this is described as a phenomenon, quote and unquote, where individuals are less likely to help a victim when other people are present, with the probability of receiving help decreasing as the number of bystanders increases. Key individuals feel less personal responsibility to act because others are present. And social influence, where people look to others' behavior for cues on how to act. So once you have the probability of somebody, because the next person is looking at the next person to say he will help or he should be able to help. Recently, I was listening to a preacher, and the preacher was invoking the name of Sunday Igboho. I'm waiting for Sunday Igboho to act. You unko? You unko is only, you know, Yorubas have this concept of omoloma lonjede turu turu. Omoloma lonjede dejo. Omoloma ni. And it's one of those bystander effects. To say, hey, my children, move back. Those who can kill the snake are coming. It's bystander effect. So when are we going to say, no, my children, go there, do it. But they prefer to protect their own children so that you can then be used as a cannon fodder. And so, In Yoruba land, it is sometimes invoked as Kinitiembe. Kinitiembe, kilokoe. So this is my definition of that. So let us then look at Yoruba land in context. Why is Yoruba land also involved in this bystander effect? We are dealing with a highly educated, cosmopolitan, and sophisticated region where men and women have developed a strong sense of purpose and dignity. We developed that. But what happened to it? How, at the end of the day, did we become what we have become? And you ask me, what we have become. And so, is the video ready? Okay, please play the first one. Okay. Well, I hope. Okay. Please kindly listen to what this guy is saying. You may agree with him, you may disagree with him, but let's listen. No, it doesn't. You want to use the microphone? No, it's not working. Okay, well, let them be trying until they are ready. No, that's the Oshun one. No, we are not ready for that one. Here's the other one. I opened this one. I opened it in the PowerPoint. Well, given the region's diverse population, it is important to classify. No, that's the Oshun one. That one is also open. I'm still going to call for the Oshun one later. Well, it is important to classify the area that is Western Nigeria as highly urbanized, complex, and challenging. Yeah, this one. Not showing. I hope you get the modern Nigeria craft identity, but it is also a region at the crossroads. Our attachment to our traditional ways of life remains. We retain our identity, and we were renowned for our empires, kingdoms, and others. Modern Nigerian state. Well, Well, so I hope you get it right. Okay. Well, it is a region that has made significant progress, both within the modern Nigerian state and independently. The livelihoods of the people include agriculture, trade, commerce, ironwork, weaving, and other crafts. We were renowned for our empires, kingdoms, and other social formations. Despite colonial invasion, we retain our identity and stature as a group. Our attachment to our traditional ways of life remains as strong as ever. But it is also a region at the crossroads. This is because both tradition and modernity are vying for control over the hearts and minds of the people. There is also a serious generational crisis, which is where I am actually going. There is a generational crisis, as both the young and old are in stark conflict over life and societal expectations. During the pre-colonial period, Yoruba society knew how to maintain order and promote human and societal progress. Land was plentiful and managed by customs. The Yoruba ideology revolves around dignity, candor, and honesty. Tangible cooperation and coexistence are embodied in ways of life through which existence is negotiated. But we no longer find this in the contemporary period. We have started to jettison some of the values and traditional practices that made the Yoruba, Yoruba. And so I have made a sustained effort to understand the real world issues faced by the Yoruba in the 20th and 21st centuries. But I was caught up in the bystander effect. However, this did not happen when Ibadan at the Battle of 1840 fought the Fulani at Oshogbo. This did not prevent the Yoruba groups and the individuals from caring for each other and their communities. So, what changed? What changed? The British introduced their divide and rule tactics, and we began to limit our interventions to ourselves. And so, who are the Yoruba today, and how do they differ from those of the past? An important question is, what are we accusing them of? Let me start by stating that through our acts of commission or omission, we are all guilty of being bystanders in our journey through history to the future. All of us. We are all bystanders. You know, there was a skit that went around sometimes 2-3 months ago. In that skit, the Hausa boys were showing us brave, bloody. To say, kill me today, kill me today. For the Igbo, it showed, kill me, but buy this thing before you die. But for the Yoruba, as he was running away, he was running and shouting, Yamio. You know, that's the way they saw it. Although I have read Adekunle Benjamin, Brigadier Benjamin, disavowing that, to say most of the people in the 3rd Marine Commando were Yorubas. And that those boys under his command, I'm quoting him verbatim now, that those boys under his command fought like Shege. So don't think we are lazy. So where is that coming from that, oh, Yorubas, ease of life, ease of existence, They just want Ibadan, that's it. No, where did this come from? Is it not the same Yoruba group that defeated the Fulani at Ilorin through the instrumentalities of Ibadan? So we have to go back to understand what the Yoruba stood for in the past and how we can maintain that integrity and identity as a brave, hardworking, and resolute people. And that is the thing that we have to talk about in this Chief Obafemi Awolowo, through a conscious policy and doctrine of a life more abundant for all, began to expand educational access for the people of the region. That advantage established the Western region as a leader in almost every sphere of life. We became the envy of others. The region forged ahead and life was good. Then the honeymoon ended. Regionalism was abolished, and we were packed together with other groups in a federation where might became right. So, what is the core of our existence as a people? In understanding, okay.
I'm a fucking graduate that they are saying there's no job in this country.
Listen to this.
But because this country makes it so hard for us, and you can't make an honest living and be rich in this country. Why is it so? We are really suffering. We are really suffering. I don't know how people have been suffering over 6 years of your life and can't come out. This is just 9 months of my life on the streets of Lagos, and I am tired. People over 30 years of your life, you can't come out. Why? Just up and know the tire on that. Why are they do like this? Nigerians, stop being cowards. I'm telling you that my father is a coward. He's scared of coming out. I don't know you're a coward. Oyedepo is a coward. Let them leave the church. Let the church come outside. Those people are ready to die for them. If they tell you maybe we do 7, 6 days fast, they go to us. If they tell you to come outside now, they don't come out because they don't come out.
So you can see the orientation of this youth to say, those of you who think we're there, so we can use the second one now. Down to okay. No, those of you who were before, since 1960, you didn't do anything. You didn't say anything. You know, and so, yes, listen to this second one. This one even has a template that is more frightening. You can't find it. There is a play section under the, yes, below the, well, so what is the core of our existence as a people? In our understanding of the ideas that led to the development of Yoruba land, the Ifa corpus has remained one of the most iconic tools of knowledge and knowledge production. Yoruba land has produced methodology, sculpture, visual and verbal arts, herbs, philosophy and crafts and arts. Morality and ethics are part of the cultural repertoire. What is Yoruba cosmology? As Yoruba people, we have been conditioned for years to remain committed to nurturing our collective consciousness. In this context, you have the principles of hard work, identity, purpose, and a clear mission. In this context, and the clear mission. These are reflected in explicit mantras that shape our existence and pursuit of meaning. And when we talk of the Yorubas, we are talking about people who are wise, wisdom, ọgbọ́n, knowledge, ìmọ̀, experience, ìrírí, intelligence, òye, làákàyè, introspection, iṣẹ́, hard work, ọmọlúàbí, integrity. These are things that actually propel Yoruba land from the past to the present. But like this guy said, all these things have been thrown out of the window simply because the elites are not doing what is proper. So the younger Yoruba boys and girls no longer trust those who are before them. And let us see the problems we are facing in the land now. Inadequate attention by inadequate governance. We are all observers of the disasters of youth unemployment, drugs, and migration. These have apparently evolved through resource misuse. Resource misuse. Wastefulness. We are also firmly ensconced in a country where a large percentage of the population craves lawlessness and impunity. And that's where I told you about the Baba Dugos. Lawlessness and impunity. Baba Dugo will come to your house after observing what you did in the morning and say, Peleo, Kiluruko Tieo, so that he doesn't misrepresent the person that he's going to report. Once you tell him the name, he goes to your father and say, Omoyi Gogi, O Gogi Laro. And you know, Topeni. So you know you are in trouble. But nowadays, these Baba Dubos no longer just care about what happens in their neighborhood. The tradition in those days, ni pé ojú kan ló ń bí ọmọ, ìgbà ojú ló ń wò. Is it still the same thing today? No. All these things are gone. They are gone. And that is why today we are going through problems without borders. Problems without borders. You know, inadequate attention by political and social forces turned us into beneficiaries of inadequate governance because people no longer care what they say about them. In those days, they tell you, not your humanity, one she. Now, what is more prevalent is, you know, and so it's now a matter of my teeth is better than yours. See the way Ibori was welcomed in his state. At least he developed his society. People got so much money. And so he's a good man. But if you go into government nowadays, you are clean, you didn't steal anything that you could share with your people, you are a bad man. That is what it is now. This is really very unfortunate. And that is why we have problems without borders, no junction, nothing. You know, these have apparently evolved through misuse or resource misused. And that is why lawlessness and impunity are the order of the day. Then now we have what I call the fear within. The fear within. Part of the reason why we all no longer sleep very well is because we lost control. So there is the fear within. Yoruba land is now ruled by fear and suspicion. Once upon a time, we enjoyed good neighborliness. That was not even too long ago. We ate in our neighbors' houses, with friends on the road from school, when we share goody, treble, and even kuli, as well as atamba daddy. You know, all these things, they will tell you, you can catch disease from eating atamba daddy. We ate atamba daddy like no man's business. Even though they told us at home that all these things, you should not buy and eat them. But because we felt we were okay. Me, I preferred the tea from the Hausas at Sabo than the tea from home. You know, because, you know, there was something about it, the way they pour it and re-pour it. You know, we had no fear. We had no suspicion. You know, all within living memory, we can still recollect all these things. Now we are all afraid, all of us. We are afraid of witches and wizards. Oh, the day we are no longer afraid of witches and wizards, all our churches will close down. They will close down. Because by the time pastor tells you there is somebody in your house, the person is tall. That is the source of your problem. Who doesn't have tall people in their house? You know? And even worse, we are afraid of our children. We are afraid of our children. That is very unfortunate. Now it is you who explain to your children. In our days, it was we who explained to our parents. Oh, why did you do this? You must explain. But now, we as parents are the ones explaining to our children. It's on the other side. We are now engaged in a crisis of self-immolation. We are influenced by our customs, culture, and tradition. Churches and mosques have exploited this to manipulate our fears. Nollywood has become a major channel for this fear. Nollywood is part of the problem. Because, yes, my wife does not agree with me on this because she tells me that it is what they see in society that they use to make their films. I said, yes, it could be that, but the way they have embellished it is beyond control. People now use handkerchief on the heads of small children to take their asiki away. You find this in Nollywood. Find it in Nollywood. Somebody told me that one of his best foods was ekuru. I also love ekuru. But he said when he continually had on a film that what is ekuru jello webora. He began to ask the relationship between ekuru and ebora. And so that was the day he ate ekuru last. These are issues. They might look very ordinary, but the significance for the youth of this age is significant. Of course, at every juncture, you can also find potsherds with sacrifices. And of course, for every sacrifice, you will also find palm oil. So when my children were growing up and I said, I have never seen you in this house eating yam and palm oil, they looked at me as if something was wrong with me. How could somebody be eating palm wine with yam? And yet in our days, it was one of the best delicacies. No, they don't eat that one any longer. It's about, even when I buy cocoa yam, I am the only one who eats it. You know? When the last Ode of Ife died, and I followed the conversation of the Gen Z online, and for weeks they didn't bury the Ode of Ife. And the conversation was they were still looking for some ingredients that they were going to use. Well, nobody knew what it was, but these Gen Zs got into their heads and began to exchange online and said, if people tell us these ingredients, let us help you look for it. And then somebody said, oh no, they are still looking for stragglers, for non-Ife children who will pass through Ife. It's not me saying it, I'm just reporting no. That such people are the ones that they are going to use as sacrifice, and then of course bury with the Oni. I don't know. I have never been there. And then another person said, what is wrong with these Yoruba gods? Why are they interested in blood in these days when they could be propitiated with shawarma? So you could see that it's a different age. Even when you tell them that don't pass through Ife during this period, they say, why? But in our days, we knew why. We knew why. You know, so society has done full circle to begin to question a lot of things that we did not question in our days. You know, so these are some of the things that have changed our society. We now have brought up a YouTube generation. Everything is YouTube. If it is not on YouTube, it's not important. So the language, culture, and narratives of this group are frightening. What are the contemporary narratives? It is because they are content creators. Everything is content. They are creating content. But for those of us who are a little bit elderly, we go back to the Yoruba culture of trying to find answers to some of these problems from our proverbs. You know what we say? Ogedemba alongpon. It's out of control. It's a different generation. We don't have the same language. We don't have the same expectations. We don't have the same culture. But we are all missing something. The happiness of the youth is the safety and happiness of everyone. That's one thing we are all missing. So how do we go back to the drawing board to begin to look at this all over again? You know, so one of the changes to be experienced is the subculture. There is now a subculture, different from the superstructure of society. These are identity-forming categories. Subcultures emerge because the dominant culture does not meet the needs or interests of members of the particular subculture. Subcultures have emerged all over the place. And that is why you now have the Yahoo, you have the Yahoo Plus. If you come to a societal gathering now, and the Yahoo boy comes with his money, with his car, and with his agbada, he's respected before that professor who is wearing his suit that he bought in 1980. And yet he's a professor. You know, these are the kind of things that have changed. You know, so this is in contradistinction to the dominant culture or dominant people in a particular part of society. So right now we have become the hippopotamus generation. You all know how the hippopotamus is: fat, very slow, lumbering all over the way. We are now the hippopotamus generation. But the other generation is now the cheetah generation. The cheetah is regarded as the fastest animal in the world. Because in your own case, you sit down, do introspection, think very well before you take a decision. But this younger generation would take a decision and apologize later. That is what it is. Because they don't know why you should sit down and begin to think. And so that is why we now have the Japa generation. The blatant disregard of intellectuals and the education sector by the political class has caused us immense hardships and enormous resource losses. And we are all watching. It's part of the bystander effect. We are all watching. Even if you don't have the money, you are going to borrow the money so that your children can Japa. And so you are in debt all over the place. This is part of the problem we have now. We are all in debt. And now Kemi Badenoch is helping to send our children home. We are going to be in trouble soon because the money they are sending, remittances they are sending home before will stop. It's going to stop. You know, me, I won't say here, and it's not going to come from my mouth to ask what Kemi Badenoch is doing. You know, but of course the effect on our children overseas is also very serious. Same thing with Trump in America. Only God knows how many of our children they have, you know, dumped here quietly that we don't know about. And so, what are we doing? Because we are going to have a deluge on our hands very soon. How is Yoruba land preparing to make life worth living for the people? Those are terrible. Those ones they repaired last year are now bad. And then you begin to ask, so, why is it that this road are bad so quickly? You know, these are some of the things we have to begin to look at. And then, of course, the scramble for a better life and immigration-generated revenue was part of those things that encouraged our children from spending so much at the embassies. 2-3 years ago, you see the number of people who left these shores. And they paid so much because those countries wanted to make money. Now they have made their money. They have allowed the children to stay there for 2-3 years. Now they are asking them to go back home. Some of those who left 3-4 years ago sold their houses. Now they are in trouble. They don't even know how to come back home. Some of them are already in this country quietly, and they have moved to other communities. So let us begin to look at our society and see how we can, at the end of the day, help society to stabilize and then give the younger generation the capacity for all of us to help in engaging in poverty eradication. Because part of what is leading to this Japa syndrome is poverty. If one person gets there, at least remittances will help us solve some of this problem. But what is our government doing? Look, I'm not talking about northern governments or eastern governments. I'm talking about Yoruba governments. It's easy to stay here and say, oh, the federal government. No. Our own people, what are they doing to stabilize society? You know, but we are suffering from a lot of issues. And that takes me to understanding the concept of me, myself, and I. That is what rules us in society now. It is about me. You know? Of course, that makes 3 people. Me, myself, and I. All those 3 people must be satisfied before anybody else. You know, this is very unfortunate. You know, we are now viewed by the younger generation as parasites and predators, which we are. We are parasites and predators. You are only angry with Wasiu when he talked about Ganusi. We all want to Ganusi where we have not produced. We have not produced. But because our expectations and our desires and our consumption patterns has become out of control, that's why now everything should come to me. If they put you in a position, 3 of your children must find employment before anybody else. That's not fair. You know, and so if we don't get society back, and if we don't get our people to understand that what we are creating in society is the problem of tomorrow, then we are going to, I mean, look at this guy. He says he's a fucking graduate, to borrow his language, and that is smarter than Mark Zuckerberg. But because he doesn't even know where to turn, no job, no money, nothing. How are we going to help the generation to create wealth? What are we going to do? And I'm not talking about what we teach them in classroom, but get them interested in what we are proposing. And we look at how to marshal resources from everybody in society. Oh, we all pay tax already, don't you know? And I don't mean government tax. We all have what is known as the black tax. The black tax, we all pay it. By the time you find a job, your parents will expect you to take care of them and take care of your younger ones. And so, if you are buy a color TV as a young graduate working, it will take some time because your parents must be satisfied, your younger ones must be satisfied. So for some time, your wife, your young wife, may end up going to the neighbor's house to watch television. And you know the problem with that one. You know? And so we are all looking on creating a generation that is OYO. You are on your own. But I am not going to blame all of us for this. I am also going to blame the traditional institution. The traditional institution is there. They are really not solving some of the problems of society. And so I have waited patiently to see which of our historians will call many of our traditional rulers to order, not only on their consumption patterns, but over the pretentious title of His Imperial Majesty. If you find a Yoruba Oba with the population of his village actually being in the region of 2,000, he wants to be addressed as His Imperial Majesty. But nobody is talking. Nobody is calling anybody to order. We all saw the disagreement between the Oni and the Alaafin. And I waited for historians to weigh in on the last controversy. Nobody talked. Nobody. Either because they were tired of the whole wahala, or because we have written books, nobody is reading. We have granted the interviews, nobody was listening. And so we left the Oni and the Alaafin to fight it out. It's not something that should be the order of the day when our children are jobless, when we expected them to facilitate industries into their homestead. We expected them to go on the lookout for their children to be placed in good positions all over the place. Now you are fighting over who was superior. Of course, as historians, we know who is superior. We know. You want me to say it? Àwọn alákòóbá. When we were younger, our rulers were known and addressed as His Royal Highness. But for many of our royal appropriate, not fitting as a suitable title. And so as they are doing their own, we are watching our younger ones getting money in society by all means possible. Some of them want to be conferred with titles by the traditional rulers. Nobody is asking where you got this money. Nobody. When even traditional rulers also join them in doing this thing. You know, I won't mention names. So. So the problems of primitive accumulation living in Nigeria has proved enormously challenging for our youth. While millions of young people are roaming the streets in search of non-existent jobs, the children of the rich are having a ball. It does violence to human heart to live in poverty in the midst of plenty. And that is what is happening. You know, we'll also have the problem of parental choices. They are also looking on. The education system is looking on. In fact, it is comatose now. Culture and community is moving backwards. You know, this is part of the problem. The propertied class has not felt compelled to intervene in societal issues. There is greed, the family structure is collapsing, and the economy is in the doldrums. So we must we must reform the complaint system. If you complain now, nobody is going to take up your case. To anybody, you don't have solution to any problem, so everybody is just there looking on. You know, so system that is friendly and accessible. A system meant to serve the interests of citizens has instead become their master. So now we have family values and societal decadence. There is a problem, you know, and then of course, at this stage, we now need to rebrand Yoruba nationalism. This is not about politics alone, but it's also about bringing back our backyard farming, cleaning. Somebody went to the UK to say she went to a secondary school in which she was told to fetch water and sweep and cut grass. Who among us didn't do it? It didn't kill us. In fact, it's part of what made us to understand the work ethics and the ethos of helping society. And so nowadays, our children will look at it and say, well, it's not their business. They are going to school, but they don't wake up until 7 o'clock. They have nothing to do inside the house before they leave for school. They will finish eating and put their plates in the sink. You know, we have served our parents. Now we are serving our children. That is where we are. And we are all looking on. There is a problem. There is a problem. So, you elites, let us wake up. But of course, part of the problem is state capture. Some people have captured the state. They are not using the resources very well. I have seen the Ogun State government recruiting 1,200 people in one day. That is not a productive way of spending state money, and it is also not going to add to productivity. So let me conclude by looking at the rise and fall of the Omoluabi ethos. We can talk now, we can talk from now till kingdom come about the loss of societal values. This most probably in the stark reality of parents helping to compromise examinations, cyber crimes, and people committing grand larceny in government. It is worrisome when people believe that a government's money is nobody's money, and so can be siphoned at will. In the past, when someone without any visible means of livelihood suddenly rolls in money, then society will take him to task as to the source of his wealth. And that is why at every talk I give, I always like to go back to the song of those days. I'm sure these children would know it, but I hope you would help me to sing it. Kini wofo le se láyé tí mo wá, kini wofo le se láyé tí mo wá, láyé tí mo wá, kàkà kí n jalè, kàkà kí n jalè, má kúkú ṣẹrú, kini wofo le se láyé. But nobody cares about that any longer. If you jale, you are smart. You are smart. You know, people come home with chicken caught from somewhere in society, and you see them killing it and boiling it. You are not asking, where are we going to start? So we must change the mindset by creating a Yoruba land grand strategy. Now that we can see that Yoruba land has changed and that old traditional values and ideas no longer work, we need a grand strategy that serves our society and provides the clear direction needed to rebuild. Our young people are versatile, imbued with creative ingenuity. We should add value to what they are. Nigeria owes our youth a more prosperous life, and we must insist on this. Even if we cannot insist on this, let Yoruba land insist on this. The resources available to us are immense. On the continent of Africa, we have the hardest working, most resilient, intelligent, and ambitious youth population. They are extremely bright and globally competitive. At this stage of our development, we need to start building a self-sustaining economy that can provide employment for our children. Let us generate knowledge of progress and development. It is incumbent on all of us to wake up, empower our youths, and redirect their minds towards driving sustainable development, thereby reducing poverty in this country. Let Yoruba land lead and encourage other regions to wake up. We should no longer allow those who attain high office through forged documents to dictate the direction of our youth. Let us stand together to steer this and support the younger generation with our strength and spirit. After all, Israel has transformed the desert into farmland, generated electricity from its expressways, and China has advanced its youth study abroad and return home. Nigerians don't return home. However, our own circumstances continue to raise further questions. What do our higher educational institutions teach? What do we do with the knowledge produced? We have the knowledge, the resilience, and the can-do spirit. All we need now is to innovate and ignite new ideas that will take us beyond the ordinary. To motivate effort and foster extraordinary capacities, we must boost finances and enhance our productive processes. We need to act now. Thank you for your attention.
All right, thank you very much for listening. I hope you had a great time with our lecture from Professor Tayo Adesina. He has been speaking on the Yoruba leaders and bystander effect, Yoruba elite and bystander effect. And 1 second, let me find you the full stop. Yes, addressing the bystander effect in Yoruba leadership. It's talking about the elites generally. And before we go, I'd just like to highlight like some key points in the things he talked about. First, he talked about the bystander effect itself, which essentially is a psychological phenomenon where folks are less likely to help other people as long as they notice that there are other people that are present to fix things. In other words, is this thing where everybody's expected to fix something and then nobody's taking the initiative to fix it because he's hoping that somebody's going to do it. And then he says that because of this kind of social psychological phenomenon in Yoruba land, particularly among the elite, that we have situations where there's decay in society and nobody's really taking responsibility for it. And then he mentioned the generation crisis between what he called the hippopotamus generation, that's the older generation, and the cheetah generation, that's the Gen Z or YouTube generation. And he said, well, the older ones are slow and they're always overthinking things. The younger ones are fast, they're fast-paced, they want to take risks, and they want to get immediate results. And so he's saying that there's a gap between both generations. I think most of us here are like in the middle. I mean, I'm very sure we have the older generation represented here, but I think many of us in this space are neither hippopotamus nor Gen Z. But I'm saying that to say that perhaps we're the bridge between both generations. A lot of us have kids who are Gen Z. And, I was talking to my wife some time ago and I said, what would it have been like if, one was actually older before having this children? The gap was so wide and I'll tell you why, because, having teenage kids can be crazy. Like they know everything, you don't know anything as far as they're concerned. And it worries parents because you just wonder like, oh my God, but here's the thing, you're even closer right now. Imagine that you're much older and you now have Gen Z, you will have the kind of gap that he's talking about. But I think that our generation, whether it's Gen X or millennial, I think we're like the bridge between both generations. And what that means basically is this: we can take the wisdom of the elders and still work with the young people. And that way we can produce kind of result. And I like the way he spoke, right? He didn't speak as though some people will come and help us. Although he talked about kings, and we're going to get to that in this highlight. He talked about kings and what the government can do as people. For instance, he mentioned how you had Baba Dubo, right? Like somebody in the neighborhood who can correct you as a child. But these days, that doesn't really happen anymore. Who are you going to blame about that? And I think that the way that could actually happen is if you're good to kids around, you may be able to, gain social currency with them enough to be able to correct them. In other words, I don't think we have the luxury of, being nostalgic about this thing and say, when we're growing up, see how it was. Now it's not like that. Okay, Kiwani Ekoa. I think what we should do is there something you can do for young people around? And if you can be a good example to them, then you'll be able to help them along, and then they can come to you and things like that. Someone says, blame the parents. But who are the parents? Aren't we the parents? So at the end of the day, we're blaming ourselves. And all of us can say, which is okay. But then the question is, so, Taloa and Shebe. So I think at the end of the day, it's not so much, and I want to just put my own, thoughts out there. It's not so much about you wanting to correct other people's children. It's about what are you doing to help other people's children that qualifies you to be able to actually correct them. Because now you have to prove that you can be listened to, essentially, But so you talked about the hippopotamus generation who are slow and they're always introspecting or over introspecting, but then there's the younger ones who are very fast. The problem with those ones though is that they think they know everything and they don't know. But then what they know is also enough. What they know is also something that can be leveraged upon by society. You can't just say, oh, they don't know everything they think they do know, but they know enough to actually be able to push stuff. For instance, we're using Facebook right now. It wasn't an old person that created Facebook. It was a young guy in uni, right? Many of the tech products we're using were not created by ancient people, right? But the society that allowed those kind of initiatives to thrive are societies where the elders were also doing what they were supposed to do. In other words, you make the society conducive for the young ones to be able to express themselves. And it's not like we're not doing anything. At least we have music, we have tech products, by the way. And it's important to also highlight these things because sometimes I think it's possible for us to overemphasize the things that are not working, that we don't even see things that are working around us. There are a number of unicorns on the continent. Most unicorns in Africa are actually in Nigeria and mostly Yoruba. Whether it's Flutterwave or Money Point. So there's Flutterwave, there's Money Point, there's Opay, which is Chinese, but it's still in Nigeria, and there's InterSwitch. There's Andela. 3 of those 5 are largely Yoruba, whether it's Money Point, Andela, or Flutterwave. By the way, unicorn just means that the company has been valued at least $1 billion. I think Flutterwave is about $2 billion now. Now, the reason I'm saying that is because maybe there's something around that also helps, but there's more that can be done, essentially. So we're saying that which means that everybody's wisdom is also important. You can't just say, oh, and that's why I'm also very careful when people say things like, I want Gen Z. And then, like, when they are having this obedient conversation, people say things like, Gen Z, they just I'm always wondering. So I used to wonder, and I used to get surprised when people talk like that. Until one day I started looking at the ages of the people talking. You see, if you have teenage children, I don't think you have any right to be saying, I want Gen Z. That's just my opinion. You may not agree, but that's just the opinion. Why? Because whenever I hear Gen Z, I just think of my children. Because the point, and I'm not saying that I am old like that, I'm just giving you an idea that you cannot just talk about Gen Z as though, let's assume that they live under your roof. Are you going to leave them just like that? You will talk. They may say no, but at least you have to do your own bit. I'm saying that to say that whether it's about obedience with our young people or with the ways people move on social media, just talk nonsense. It's important to know that you also have a duty to the next generation. I'll just say that, imagine everybody before you also said the word no mokoko. By now, we're Daru. All right, so let's move away from the generational crisis that he mentioned. He also mentioned the failure of the modern elite. So there's a mistake I think he made, and this is my own opinion. I think he made a mistake. I think a lot of people make that mistake. When we mention elite in society, I think our mind, to be fair, he also actually did better than most of us. Most of us just think of political elite. The politicians, they're the elites. He was gracious to even include religious leaders. To be fair, he actually tried. He included religious leaders, he included traditional leaders, he even included Afars and Aje and the witches. He included every group. But there's a group that people don't usually include when they talk about elites, and it's us. When you read Nigeria's history, it's funny that majority of, in fact, just about every single one of us, to be honest, based on the fact that you went to school and you can actually afford to be online, you'd be most likely, you'd be an elite, like the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. Up until 2000, it was, and I'll tell you the reason. The reason is because it's the elites that actually speak up for the generality of the people. What would you call Ganifa Wahimi? He wasn't a politician. well, until it began NCP, National Conscience Party, much later. But generally speaking, it was. But that's elite. Femi Falana, those are elites. The point: a lot of us have degrees, and you're lawyers, and you're doctors, and you're this and you're that, but you never really see yourself there. Therefore, you never really think like you should think if you're actually going to do something about Nigeria. And I'm saying this because who knows? Maybe somebody here is thinking of politics at some point. Maybe there's some points actually like now. For instance, if you want to fix something in politics in 2027, it's already late. So maybe you want to join a political party now to plan for something in 2031 or 2035. The point I'm trying to make is that when it comes to responsibility, we tend to identify a lot of people but ourselves, right? Folks, universities, those are people that can shape people's minds. And many of us work and, you can't really classify yourself as Bubuero, because if in your community there are people that can come to you, they don't even have to come to you. You can tell that most likely you are a bit higher than the people around you. So I think that we should also take some responsibility for these things. That's what I think, rather than just say things like, they are the elites. And because what's the essence of having degrees and you can't even have conversations at that level? And it's not about occupying positions, because you also mentioned that there are people who don't have education in terms of formal education, but they're also elites. Maybe they are market men and women, or they're in what's the word now? Transport, transport union, right? They're also elites in their own. But the point is, he mentioned all those people, and it's fantastic because it was quite broad, but he didn't mention the fact that many of the people actually listening are elites as well. So, for instance, you are not NURTW, you don't work in the market, you're not a butcher, and you're not in politics. Where are you? Okay, so I think we can find ourselves. But it's very important what he said, that, and this is where it gets interesting. He mentioned that the elites generally have a number of things, don't share one. Number one is self-interest. When people operate on the me, myself, and I philosophy, where it's all about yourself, what you can gain, what you can get. And I think a lot of us are like that. And then we're like, I want elites here. Well, that means basically that if you're pointing the finger at your neighbor, you have 4 pointing back at you. Essentially saying that the idea of selfishness, to be honest, it doesn't come upon you when you become a politician. Our politicians are from amongst us. When people complain about Nigerian politicians, I laugh, and sometimes I find it very funny, because they sound as though they're going to do better. If they get there, they will do worse. Why? Because the person who went into that place and stole millions and billions of naira is like you. Did we not hear recently that people are having prayer program for Malami? Of course, he's innocent until proven guilty. But the point is, with all the evidence, right, nobody really cares about it. Was Peter Obi not celebrating with him the other day? When they took the man, did you not hear that it's because he's from this particular place? So it's the people that produce the leaders, and our leaders are a reflection of ourselves. If you insult them, you're insulting yourself, because if they put you there, most likely you do the same. But hopefully you don't. Hopefully you won't. But I think what will make you not do it is by having conversations like this and also introspecting. Because think about it, we insult. Many of us insult politicians because, number one, maybe because we don't have access to what. I mean, if somebody just introduces you to somebody, they're not giving you money. You just know that person knows of your existence. You will change. I mean, let me not say you will change. Many people will change. Just that governor come up with you are existing. The fact that you even have his number, you may not even ever call him, or you have the number, Governor Bawo, you have the number of the governor's cousin. There's a way you move in town. and then you defend him, not for any but because the point I'm trying to make essentially is that the whole selfishness that we see on nepotism, like you mentioned, you also mentioned nepotism. It doesn't begin when a person becomes a politician. It's something that it's in society, and if we don't mind having it as regular citizens, then nobody should mind if a person does it as a politician, because you don't go through this baptism of fire just because you're becoming a politician. So our leaders are from amongst us, and I believe that the leader is a representative of his society. And if you hate your leaders, it's because your society is actually warped. Now, to be fair, it is possible to also have leaders who will look at things and want to do better for the society, right? But at the end of the day, they are still products of that society. Okay? And maybe what we want to do is to create oases, create enclaves where you like a bubble, where essentially you're having conversations amongst yourself. So you have like a society within a society, and that bubble can now create somebody that can help the generality of the people. And I think that's what conversations like this actually help us to do. And why am I saying that? So that we don't lose hope and say, does that mean that we'll never produce someone good? The point is that you will always have like a group within a group, and within those groups, if you can raise good people and you are more ideologically balanced, hopefully you can now create somebody that can help the entire society, which is what happened with Action Group that Olo created. They're able to create a space where the elites of those days, could meet and talk and think and, rub minds, and then they were able to create stuff that they replicated also in UPN, and they now saw it, in the effect that it had on the generality of the people of Western Nigeria. So I think that, maybe that's what we're doing here. Maybe you're getting something. Maybe you should also create something like that, like a place where people can gather and rub minds. Hopefully we create a new generation. But the point is you're not going to create a better set of leaders by just complaining and shouting, because complaints just shows that you're angry with what you have produced. Doesn't mean you're producing anything new. All right, so you also mentioned nepotism, that people ensure that the children will get jobs before the masses roaming the streets. Then you mentioned state capture, that the elite siphon resources and ignoring the black tax. Yeah, so that, to be honest, some people steal money. If you're wondering, I think, let me say what I think about this thing. I think those who steal all this money in government, to be honest, number one, they are poor. Very poor. Like, their mind is poverty reading. There's a way you steal money that I know that you are poor. Like, you could have $1 billion in your account, but I can tell that you are very poor. The person is not thinking of productivity. There's no reward for labor. It's all about just having and hoarding. And they steal such that you'll be wondering, the next 3-4 generations don't have to work. But here's the problem: that money never lasts. Not that the money will not last though, but see, there's usually no steward. And even if you have a steward, the point is that you have successfully created a generation of entitled people. I've not seen one. If you have seen, please let me know. I've not seen one person who actually created that kind of, space where you just keep stealing money from government, that you can say in the next 2 generations, the family is still up there. Like, still relevant. I don't know of the 70s, 80s. I don't know of any. Because it can't last. And when I say it can't last, you may still be looking at the money. I'm not saying the money, but to be honest, you can't because you can't replicate productivity in those kids. What you have done is to steal money that they can use. So the only thing they know to do with money is to spend. There are 4 things you can do with money, right? There is, you make the money, definitely. You save money. Okay, it's actually 5 things. If you add making money, so it's going to be 5. So you make money, you save money, you give money, you spend money, you invest money. Okay? So you make, you save, you give, you invest, and you spend. Those are the 5 uses or 5 ways you can actually use money. If all you do is to steal, you have not made it, you've only stolen it. Another way to make it is to invest it. You have not invested it. The only thing you are doing is to save that money so that you can spend it, or so that you can give it. For the most part, you give it to your kids so that they can all spend. So the point is that the only thing the only bit about that money that works for you is that you save and you spend. You save and you spend and give. Save, spend, give. None of those things actually causes money to go back to you. It keeps the flow. Like the flow, it keeps the flow going, but doesn't really replenish it, because savings don't replenish anything. You can save money for 1 year, they'll give you one miserable, not miserable, miserly, but still miserable. Only into 5%. The funny thing is, at the end of the year, if you're not careful, the value of the money you have is actually less than the money you saved at the beginning of the year. I mean, inflation and all things, and inflation and all, right? You've lost money actually, but they give you like one paltry 3% or 5% or maybe 7%, and that's it. But what do you do now? You just give and you. So the point is this: you have kids who are now used to spending money. They come to you, they collect money, they spend. They come, they collect money, they spend. You give, they spend, and all those things. You have not taught them how to work. You have not taught them how to build. You've not taught them anything about investment or anything about actually making the money. So what happens is that when you're gone, nothing much is going to happen in society. I don't want to mention families. I know many. I know examples. I'm sure you know as well. But to be honest, and someone wrote it, and the person is correct. Or John Akala wrote it on TikTok. Says, "I call it poverty of the brain." It's true. It's being poor. People are so poor that all they have is money. Very poor, like no ideas, no plan, no strategy. I was reading somebody's report yesterday. In fact, two people, I won't mention their names. One very rich, the other one was a politician. One used to obnob with military guys. I just saw the list of their properties. Now, let me tell you something. There's nothing bad in having properties. It's beautiful to have properties. I'm not going to lie to you. You will not be poor in Jesus' name. It's good to have money. It's good to have properties. It's good to have investment. May God bless you. Let me first say that one before I now tell you that. I was looking at the list of their houses and I was like, again, the caveat, I love to see, I mean, it's good to have properties. Again, it's good. My dad used to take me out when I was a lot younger. We'll go from place to place. And there's a feeling you have, right, when you own stuff, especially when it's legit. It's actually very good. Having said that, I saw the list of the properties of these two men. If I mention their name, you will know their names. I was like, so what was that all about? They are gone now. Both of them are dead. One, they just finished one court case last week saying somebody should not sell anything, somebody should not do anything. There's property in Ghana, there's property all over Nigeria in different places. They've built this hotel here and houses there. Okay, so to what end? The person is gone. The problem now is that everybody's fighting over the property. So my question is, so all this time in politics and all this time in power, is this what it eventually comes to at the end of the day? That yes, you have property, yes, you've bought all these things, but your kids can't even sit down to actually agree on how to use what's on ground. Everybody's in court. Anyway, patience of our economic come so far no. In case the Lord will gbàdúrà gbogbo an sin, ke kan wa lo boss no inú yàrá agbára kan báyìí sin. Ẹ ṣe jẹ́jẹ́ o. Ẹ má náwó olùbáṣubàṣu, ẹ má ṣe olùbáṣubàṣu. How do I say that in English? I'm saying that in case one of us or all of us or whoever, you get opportunity to maybe get an opportunity to work maybe in government or whatever, do things right. Don't become what you hate. All those people that are complaining about government, do you know there are people, I don't like mentioning names because I don't want to, I just don't think it's cool. But there are people in National Assembly. In fact, there were some people in National Assembly. Some of them have gone now. Before they got there, their job was to be insulting and criticizing politicians. They went there, did the exact same thing. This, in fact, let me mention party. I won't mention name. This last election, Shebi, they said the LP was going to Kiniko. Did they not collect all the cars and everything that everybody was going to all the APC representatives were collecting. Structure of criminality. Everybody was structure of criminality. People usually become what they criticize. It's about synthesis. Like you start with a thesis, you have an antithesis. I hate this thing, it's not right, it's not going to eventually. That's synthesis. But hopefully our story will be different. The Elevation Lab said, in fact, that example you wrote in the comment section is the exact example I was going to mention, but I'm not going to mention it still. But thank you for writing the comment section. That's a very good example. The only thing you see right now is flaunting of cars and wealth. And you know the funny thing, it's so tacky. It's the way they do it is so tacky. Like there's no class. Oh my. There's one I saw one time like that. I needed new burukulowo. On lo se shopping. On wa show. On one budget. But about big that egun. In fact, egun Benin Republic find any law because color riots. Like but wait, you know the clothes are expensive. You know that the wares are expensive, but the person just doesn't know how to combat. Everything just jagba. Is this all there is to the money now? Look like I can't even say look like Egun because Egun look better, to be honest. But I don't want to mention that person as well because we don't want to fight anybody. But anyway, all of this is not just to criticize people, it's also to help our own selves, right? If you get there, what are you going to do better? Okay, so let's go to some other things. So you mentioned he critiqued traditional institutions. And yes, he went there with a lot of people using his imperial majesty. I don't even think that we're serious, to be honest. But if you want to call imperial majesty and you're the king, of course, me, I'll call the imperial majesty. You don't call me. But in reality, what does imperial majesty really mean? Especially if you've never had an empire. That's the whole idea of imperial. When I was growing up, and he said it, maybe one or two kings use imperial, but generally speaking, it was HRM and HRH. His Royal Majesty, His Royal Highness. But it's also a symptom of where we are in society. We love titles. We love titles. Well, by the way, the National University Commission of Federal Ministry of Education, one of them, said people should not be using, if you have an honorary doctorate, you shouldn't be calling yourself a doctor. I hope that helps. But we love titles. So why not call yourself Imperial Majesty if you can? But some people, of course, can be Imperial Majesty, but I don't think it's everybody. Then he mentioned internal rivalries between some kings, and then talked about Alaafin and Oni. But he said that silence also adds to the problem. To be honest, he also mentioned that they have written books, they've granted interviews, and people have not been listening. But I'll talk about this particular historian, Professor Akinwumi Ogundiran. Professor Akin Ogundiran is very right. Every king has his own place. Oni is the king of all of us. He's our father. And I don't think that all this nonsense about who is better is just something they start creating. It's not even up to 70, 60. For the Yoruba people, it's not that long ago. So people started doing it like some decades ago, but it got really serious in the 1980s. The Benin was started in 1970. So if you really think about it, it's not that long ago. So think about if you've existed as a people for centuries and people are trying to change something like 5 decades ago, 4 decades ago, do you think you really take that seriously? So it's important to also say what actually true. Of course, say it respectfully, but it's important to actually say the truth, or else people will just be running around with lies. All right, then. So, by the way, if you're just joining us, we just listened to Professor Adesina speaking on the bystander effect, and we're having like a review of all the things he talked about before leaving. So he mentioned the Japa syndrome and economic despair. He talked about how many youths sell their possessions to flee the country, that's the Japa, only to face potential deportation from countries like the UK or the United States. Those who are living abroad, may God bless you. May God cause you to prosper. And I should say, there's nothing wrong with traveling abroad. Migration is part of human experience. I just think they would rather be at home, right? So a lot of people are economic migrants. And I think it's also a challenge. Last week, some people were trying to tell Tinubu what to do there in the UK, and I just felt sorry for them. I didn't even talk about it in our sessions. That group said, I can't even remember the exact stuff, but something along the lines of, so in a particular country, some people, the diaspora, I think it's India, the diaspora actually got some money together and went back home and created this solution that's actually changing stuff. I think it's in tech or something like that. That's actually what, the person wrote it there. Like in India, folks in the UK have gone back home and they've created something, from diaspora, and they're actually impacting the economy. And then now ended by saying that, now that the president Tinubu is now that the president is in the UK, he needs to look into this matter and find a way that the government will be involved to facilitate and to what's the word now? Almost like sponsor a similar project in Nigeria. And I was like, this is nonsense. He literally just said that Indian folks in the diaspora created a solution and they did it in their land. You are now saying that for your own country, the government should go and look for money. The truth is, for the most part, we all know this. We all grew up hearing that the government should do this, the government should do that. We know what we know. Okay, let me ask you this question. It's a rhetorical question, by the way. How many of you, when you were growing up, you heard about a child who probably built a toy car or whatever, something really fancy, and people said, oh, if the government can only give this person money, they can build it and make it big? I don't know if you've ever heard of, well, it's not even rhetorical, you can even answer in the comment section if you like. Have you ever heard of something like that before? Maybe somebody creates like a toy car. Shetty ready. Engage very quickly. Shetty ready. We are more conscious toy car and say, we are getting there down. They just make men. It can build an aeroplane from the toy that they've done. Someone says plenty of times, exactly. It's a joke. The countries we compare ourselves to, that's not how it works. Now, are there people that the government can take over and get to work in the innovative labs and stuff? Yes. But many of the solutions that we're using today actually came from capitalism. Was it government that went to make Apple or Facebook or Twitter or whatever those things? It's more like, and this is actually a gap for all of us. So it's a gap, especially if you work in the finance industry. How do you ensure that investors, think about it, all our unicorns that we're talking about, where did they get their money from? From abroad. The VCs. Many of what we use in Nigeria and say, oh, they're doing it well and everything, is from the VCs actually put the money together. You come to Nigeria, your country doesn't even have the budget of some states in the US. You're asking your country to come and sponsor. We need to develop local solutions, right? So they have VCs that will put money in a particular project. Some will tank, some will work. Many will even tank. The one that works will pay for everything that tanks. And then they grow stuff like that. So if folks have lived abroad all these years and they're still saying the same thing, like Nigerian government needs to come and invest in something like this so that we can also have it in Nigeria, I'm like, what on earth are you talking about? Are you saying that we're also incapable of replicating what the Indians did? And by the way, let me just make it very clear. It doesn't mean it's going to work out. It may even fail. But guess what? It's part of the journey. How many people have succeeded without failing in this life? I don't know of any, personally, that they've succeeded though, but they've never failed. I don't know of any. But the point is, I think we like this thing where I have an idea of government come and do it. Last week I was looking at this old place, somebody did an analytical work comparing Nigerian police and NYPD. NYPD has less staff than Nigerian police, but they get more money than the entire Nigerian police structure. New York Police Department, New York State, the police department, their budget is way higher. I'm going to see if I can find you the exact stuff. Their budget is way higher than the budget of Nigerian police force. I just think that sometimes we do all these things where you not be wondering, should be well, it was okay, we should be thinking of those kind of solutions. The other day we're looking at something, this e-commerce. Jumia is about 14 years now. They've never made a profit. Never. They've been having losses. I think it's about $6.65 million or something right now that they lost the last time. I'm saying a lot of things at the same time. What I'm saying basically is that how are they able to do that? How are they able to keep losing so much money and still, keep running? Because they're being backed up by, not by the government of America, but by VCs. And I think it's important for us to begin to think of such solutions. I'm not saying that I have all the answers. I'm just saying that maybe these conversations could also open your mind to the gaps, because let's not lie to ourselves, Nigeria there are many gaps. I'm still looking for that thing, but that's why I'm talking like this. Okay. Yes, I was saying that there's a gap, that there are many gaps, right, in different industries, and what we should be doing is to actually get in there and take advantage of whatever gaps we see. And people are doing it. People are doing it in tech, and I mention tech a lot because it affects our daily lives. Recently, PayPal, they were trying to come back to Nigeria, and people say no, we don't want them to come because they dealt with Nigerians. They'll just take your money and go away. But the reason Nigerians can say we don't want PayPal anymore is because there's Flutterwave, there's Paystack, there are many local solutions, right? So when PayPal didn't give us what we wanted, folks created some sense. NYPD versus Nigerian Police Force, the funding gap 2026. So listen to this one. The budget for internal security, NYPD got $6.15 billion. Let us think, New York Police Department got $6.15 billion. The Nigerian Police Force got $967.32 million. It's not even up to $1 billion. Although it's a lot of money by Nigerian standard, because that's 1.31 trillion naira. But just to give you an idea, because we're comparing it with the state. Now, folks working in NYPD are 34,700 people or officers. But Nigerian Police Force has 371,800. So the budget is 6.35 times larger than our entire Nigerian Police Force budget. But we are not, oblivious to the fact that there are many other dynamics involved in all of these things. So, we're not saying compare, direct comparison. Just to give you an idea that if you have a country whose budget for the police force is this slim compared to a state, I'm not comparing a country and a country, because that would be unfair, because comparing America with Nigeria is unfair. But I think it's fair to compare one state to Nigeria. The budget of Texas alone is bigger than that of Nigeria. But let's stay with the police force. All of that to say that many of the things that we love to see, that we talk about, that we see in the US or in the UK, these are not things that the government, I mean, government also, they're also involved though, you know, but it's not everything. I'm just saying that maybe we need to also be our own Vanderbilt. I recommended a documentary a while back. I think you should have a watch party sometime. I'm thinking of it though. What do you guys think? There's a way we can do it on, I don't know if it's going to be cool on YouTube, Sha, because if you start broadcasting, how it's going to look. But there's a way to do this thing on TikTok where people can watch like a movie and then they can still comment. Right? I think we should have something like that. And the reason is because I keep mentioning some of these documentaries and I don't know if people have actually been able to watch them. They're actually quite good. I don't know if you've watched them. But has anybody here seen The Men Who Built America? If you watch that stuff, you just discover that we just enter our own phase of The Men Who Built America. We've been there. It's not like this is the first time. I mean, we have Eleganza, we have Dantata, we have all these great guys. But in recent times, especially with Dangote Refinery, it looks like we just entered our own phase of it. You know, but this couple say, Mbao, you have not watched it. Then says he has watched 1 to 4. Exactly. I'll think about it because there's a way. I also want to make sure that it may be cool on TikTok, but I want to be sure there's also cool on YouTube. But let me just recommend that you don't have to watch it here. You can find it. Please watch The Men Who Built America. I want to beg you all. Anyhow you can find it. I think somebody said they're part of it on YouTube now. I've never really. I might as well just check it now. Please watch it. It's a series. It's about last 4 episodes. I think there's an extra episode at the end. Ekin will be on my YouTube. If I find it here, I'll just tell you where to find it. I have the series. Oh, this is good. So go on YouTube and just type The Men Who Built America. People actually uploaded it. I've never seen it here. This is nice. It may not follow exactly the way Mumbo. So it was actually made by History channel, but some people have uploaded like some parts on YouTube, and it's not bad. It's not bad at all. So if you look for this person, Cecil Wynn, CECILWINN, this person has some very nice videos. Please watch. This one has broken it down to about 8 episodes. Because I mean, it's actually quite. I'm not sure you can watch it. Well, if you binge watch, you can probably finish it in a day or two. But the reason I'm saying that is because it changed my view of development. I might as well say it changed my life. And I'll tell you one of the things that actually got me wowed was when I discovered in that documentary that the Grand Central Station was not built by any government. I was like, what? And I think when you think about the fact that yes, the government laid some rail tracks, but that what actually made railway in the US was actually individuals laying tracks, people actually running trains. Think about it, just like you have buses, luxury buses, or your NURTW, think of having trains like that. Right, so you hear about Vanderbilt, or they call him Commodore, and you hear about John D. Rockefeller, J.P. Morgan, Carnegie, Thomas Edison, Ford, all these people. Essentially, we are the only ones that can save ourselves. All this government thing. Government has a role to play. They have to make the place, they have to remove all these red tapes and bureaucracy that stop people from actually excelling. They have to create the right environment, and they also have to support loans and stuff when needed. But so I'm just saying that we should let's watch The Men Who Built America. I think it's inspiring. Or no, hopefully, someone says we need steel industry. Yes, we need. But you see, they've been building Jakarta since before independence. At this point, it might as well be 150 years. They've been building that thing forever. But the steel industry in the US was not built by the United States government. It's just like what's happening with our refinery. The only refinery that works in Nigeria was built by an individual, not by the government. What makes us think that we need a Jakarta before we can have steel industry in this country, or steel firms? Of course, we had WAPCO all the while, and then after a while, they began to import. So you had them, even Nagote imported at the time, Ibeto and the rest of them. And then later on, but we have limestone all over the place. But still what's happening right now, we're producing cement, we're selling it off, although it's expensive, which is another matter altogether. And I think it has to do with, again, government. Because that's what the manufacturers are saying. They're paying so many taxes and levies and stuff. So maybe that's another conversation. But the point is, why don't we have a government-owned cement company? Interestingly, and this is the brilliance of OWL, Papa made sure that some of those companies were either created by government or government actually invested in some of those companies, like WAPCO, the one in Ewekoro, West African Portland Cement, Nigerite. Back in the day, they would make the carpet, the shea carpet. Yes, those ones that used to lay 4x4 or 2x2 or 1x1. Small carpet. Then they had this roof, but we're living a different day. I just hope that we have and you know what, if you provide those solutions, you make a lot of money. That's the good part. So if you've started and it's not working out, be encouraged. It will work out. May God bring help your way. May you meet the right people. May you have the right information and go to the right places. May you experience favorable coincidences, divine coincidences that will take you closer to the fulfillment of your dreams, because we need you. I just don't like people complain every time, because at the end of the day, we just talk. People just curse everybody out and feel lighter, and that's all. Well, hopefully we can do better. All right, let's go back to our stuff. So, The Men Who Built America, you can literally, I just saw everything on YouTube. It's quite nice. There's a guy called Kalumane, Kalumane. He also has some of the episodes. Just check it out on YouTube. Right, well, on the History channel. It's very, very, very good. What this company say, we call it carpet. I think they are made from nylon. I think so too, but that thing used to break, after many years. What the man last Kamakparo. I just remember the one we had in our living room growing up. May we have better leaders? No, and may we be those leaders we are looking for, because at this rate, where are we going to get them from? All right, let's go back to where we started. Someone say it is destroyed by heat. Well, I mean, we've moved on to tiles and everything now. So, but back in the day, it used to be those ones or tarazo. That's what we used to call that thing. Oh my fine gone. All right, so let's quickly wrap up. Cybercrime, Yahoo. That there's a breakdown of the Omoluabi ethos, and that has led to a society that celebrates wealth regardless of its source. And then he mentioned that the university system is becoming anachronistic because it fails to teach the can-do spirit or provide path to actual wealth. How can the university system provide path to actual wealth when people who are teaching do not know the path to actual wealth? It is well, it is well. Hopefully there'll be more town and gown intercourse, so that folks that work in the industry will be able to help people in school. The lecturers as well, they also need to make more money than just money from teaching. There are grants, there are things that they can do. There are inventions and patents and stuff and books that people can release. But the important thing, of course, is that I think from all of this, the one that concerns all of us is the fact that people celebrate wealth regardless of its source. And it's concerning, if we're celebrating, what's this guy's name? So we're actually celebrating Hush Puppy. Can you imagine? Was flamboyant, was wearing designer clothes, traveling, looking really good. People saw that and it was aspirational for them. They wanted to have what he had. But you have to be who he was in order to get what he had. So evidently, more people want to go into that kind of lifestyle. And it's also a shame in society. And it affects everybody. To be honest, I can't say it affects me, but it affects everybody. Because even if it doesn't affect you directly, indirectly, young people want to you see 20-year-olds that want to ride. I think we're very materialistic. There's nothing wrong in having great, beautiful cars and lovely houses, but okay, so a 20-year-old wants to have a Mercedes and wants to buy a new one, which is absolutely ridiculous considering his father is probably still renting an apartment inside one slum. But let's even assume that he really wants to get a car. So to what end? He just flaunt it. If not, yearly matakoko. Boma wa Benz. Olórin kan tí kókó bàbá yìí. Gbẹ̀ngà Adébóyè kan gbà kan ṣe rántí orin yẹn tó kàn pa èèyàn kan tí ẹ̀ ń ta igi tó ń ṣe gítà tó ń náwó fóbìnrin àfihàn nígboro. Ọlọ́mọdé àbímọ ọ̀ràn. Ọlọ́mọdé ká jẹ́ ọ̀ràn náà, because this is actually concerning. And if you have young people around you, gently, show them a different path. Someone says, Otedola lórí méjì mo fẹ́ lówó bí Dangote gang. Only if they knew how the Otedola they're talking about got the money. By the way, he has a very fantastic book. You guys, you can get it on Redo Books. Let me plug our bookshop. His book, Making It Big, that's Femi Otedola. If you want to know how he grew, read that book. By the way, when the book came out, some people said they can't read it because the man doesn't have a grasp to a great story. I said, how dumb can you be? So you're looking for only poor people that became rich are the people that can inspire you. Oh, God. So what if when you become rich, you have problems? Would you not still need somebody like this to actually guide you? The truth of the matter is that it doesn't really matter whether the person was poor before. People like rags to riches kind of story, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you can learn from anybody. Rich to richer, poor to rich, richer to. If Dangote writes a book today, I'm buying it. I'm not going to say, oh, he had his uncle, they gave him, some people say 500,000, naira in the 1970s. You don't have that kind of uncle. Here's what I think people don't realize. Whereas Dangote's uncle had money, maybe what you have is heritage. Maybe what you have is location. Maybe what you have is where you were born. Maybe what you have is somebody you know. Maybe what you have is your talent. I don't think God, it's not like I don't think. God does not create anybody without leverage. Which is why I don't understand the beef that people say, oh, because he's rich, I can't learn from him. You know that you two people can say that because you're very smart, they can't learn from you because they are dull. And the only thing that can inspire them is somebody that is very, dull, that now has a first class. There's something you have about other people. Essentially, that's what I'm trying to say, basically. Whether it's education. And if you say, oh, somebody is dull, nobody's really dull like that. But let's even say somebody is not academically, they'll have strengths in other places. Essentially, what I'm saying is that there's nobody without advantages, and it's important to take advantage of your advantages, if that makes sense. All right, we'll begin to wrap up now. He also talked about the need for a Yoruba grant strategy. I think this is where we're going to end today. He talked about the need for a Yoruba grant strategy. So he first talked about leveraging the region's immense resources and intelligence to build industries. Before, we just say, oh, government should do this. We should also begin to talk about it ourselves. There are people here right now listening to me. You've been thinking about this. Write it down. And then also begin to look out for opportunities. All these things that we're talking about, they are one shame, me. Better life, yo. And if you like money, you make a lot of money from that, by the way. But beyond that, like, you are producing the kind of solutions that we need. See what Dangote is doing now. So he's talking about the Grand Yoruba strategy. I don't know who is going to do that one. Maybe don't commission Shah, because God has blessed us with great leaders and and governors. But I think on the personal level, Dangote has his own grand strategy. But everything will link up. Macadamic has a great strategy. But if you now do it from a position of I'm Yoruba, when the version got to my be Yoruba, something that will benefit the space, I think that will even be a better one. Before you know it, you discover that there are many people that have your kind of mindset, and somewhere, somehow, we will meet. You talk about rebranding nationalism, returning to backyard farming, strong work ethics, and the communal discipline of the past. I think that's where I think we are where we are. So backyard farming, when I was growing up, we had a space back of our house. These days, many people don't, but doesn't mean that they can't do it. People are using sacks to grow yams. I think it's about creativity if you are that kind of person. Talk about communal discipline of the past, so we can all raise our kids together and stuff. Then lastly, you mentioned empowering youth, redirecting the creative ingenuity of the younger generation towards sustainable development. That's 24. Let us encourage the younger people, and whatever it is that they're doing. And let's not say that they're just too young, they don't know anything. They know something. Maybe not enough to be able to act like the way they do, but there's something there. And hopefully we can harness that. What this copy says, Prof, I need 700 million naira loan. Your own money is what you need is not even up to what I need. My brother, God will provide. But I think you can start with what you have, though, seriously. I don't think it's what many people like to hear, but I think you can start with what you have. And whatever you build with what you have, you will leverage on it to get what you want. Well, in my own experience, that's how it has worked. Sometimes you start with next to nothing, and then you build, and folks see it, and people watch. Even this thing that we're doing here, our live sessions, we do it every day. There's a reason I do it the way I do it. There's a reason we have it the way we do, and people will reach out. $2 doesn't look like a lot of money, but it's a lot of money, but you get the point. I mean, from a perspective of a project. So, but if all you have is $7, just use it. And what I say right now may sound very stupid, I know, but trust me, there's a way unseen forces will come to your aid when you start with what you have. I'm a Christian, so I'll tell you one story from the Bible or two. Moses, I mean, you may not like this, you may not be a religious person, but just hear the story. Moses was leading people out of Egypt. They got to the Red Sea, and then, of course, there was a sea in front of them. The Egyptian army was behind them, and then he said to God, part this thing and everything. They were praying, like we do in Nigeria. They're praying, and God now said to him, "What do you have in your hand?" Essentially, told him to use what he has in his hand to part the sea. The moral of that story is that while prayer is important, that stick that God gave him a long time ago, that the burning bush, was the one he eventually used to part the sea. So there's something there. A normal day you think of, like, what kind of engineering do you require to be able to part the sea? Let's get project managers. Let's get people working on this. But it doesn't always work like that. Last story, or second story. There's a story in the Book of Kings. A woman whose husband was a priest, was a prophet actually. She became a widow, of course, the husband died. And creditors came to take her children, her sons. Essentially, in Yoruba, we call them Iwofa. Because not the farmer, anti-Jegbese. So, by 2 days, so the children will have to go there and work for a particular number of years before they are released. Anyway, she runs to a prophet. The prophet is Elisha, and said to him, "My children, my husband did this. The kids they are taking the kids, and so on and so forth." And Elisha did not even pray for her. He asked him one simple question: "What do you have in your house?" I wrote a book on this, by the way. It's on Amazon. It's on Seller. I have a number of books on Amazon, by the way, just to plug it there. Anyway, so he asked him, "What do you have in your house?" And she said that she had a little oil. So he told her that she should go back home and talk to her neighbors, borrow containers, and that she should lock the door and begin to pour the oil in those. Now, it may just be a story. The important thing is the story. Me, I believe in miracles, but the miracles don't even happen until she used what she had. She poured the oil, multiplies, and then she sold the oil, and then, of course, she paid the creditors, and then she was safe. Last story is Jesus. A lot of people, and this one is actually very important. I left it for, to this point. A lot of us talk about this miracle where Jesus fed 5,000 men. They didn't count the women and children. 5,000 men with 5 loaves of fish and 2 bread. I want to quickly do like a little talk on it before we go. So here's Jesus, surrounded by many people, thousands of them. He looks at them, they're looking very hungry. They've been listening to him all day, and he just felt like we should do something to feed them. So he calls his disciples, "Let's feed these guys." They're like, "Oga, even if somebody works for 1 year, we cannot get enough money to feed these people." So I was like, "Okay, so what do you have?" God always has that question, "What do you have?" So we don't have anything, no. Then that's Philip said, "Oh, we're going to need so much money." The angel comes and says, "Oh, there's a boy around who has 5 loaves and 2 fish." And Jesus says, "Okay, bring the 5 loaves." And then he prays. So the point is, he did not pray until after he got something to start with. And it's something in that space. I think there's always something around, so it may not be something, to be honest, for the most part, it usually would not make sense. And I could tell you my own story, but I want to tell you universal stories for today. That happened to me several times. So anyway, he takes this bread, prays, and then distributes, and then they share the bread, and then they were all good at the end of the day. But there's some things there that, number one, he got what he needed. Number two, but let me just say this. Before he began to give the bread out, he said to the disciples that they should make the people sit down in groups of 50 and 100. And I think that's probably where we have problems in business structure. So he said they should sit, before he prayed, before he gave them anything, before he multiplied anything, he said they should sit in groups of 50s and 100s. So what that means basically is this: if you don't get those people seated before multiplying whatever it is you're multiplying, they will lynch you. They will become that mob that will get rid of you, because all of them want to get the bread you had, which is what we have in Nigeria. Have you noticed that there have been stampedes in many cases? It happened last year. What even happened in Ibadan? They said people come and collect food. Jesus already solved that problem thousands of years ago. People come and collect food. All of them now went to the particular place. Now we're not giving to them. They were now, trying to get ahead of each other until they killed. Some people actually died. Some people went to prison for that. I think some of them were released eventually because it wasn't exactly their fault, but organizational capacity was zero. Anyway, Jesus said, let them sit down. Why? Because if you don't and start multiplying stuff, they will kill you. We're trying to get, or they will kill each other. And then afterwards, he then now started sharing stuff. And when he shared it, he never gave it to the people directly. He gave it to the disciples, who then gave it to the people. You see a lot of structure, a lot of order, a lot of organization. We spend too much time just praying for miracles. And even the person we are praying to is a bit more, it's not even a bit, he's a lot more strategic than we care to know. So all I'm saying is that I have some plans, right, that requires a lot of money. I can't even mention it here. But I think the strategy always works. Whatever it is that you're doing right now, do it well and build off of it. And who knows, it just might be that what you're doing right now will be the stuff that allows you to whether pivot into other things or get the money that you really need. And a very good movie you should watch if you're interested. Watch Social Network. The Social Network, and that's the title of the movie. The movie about Zuckerberg and Facebook. Right? How it started. Yeah, there are some things that happened in the beginning, but details. Anyway, things scale up eventually. Or you watch the one on movie on Steve Jobs. They've done a lot of movies on Steve Jobs, by the way. I find it very intriguing watching biopics. Wait, let me look for the title in case you want to watch. Pirates of the Silicon Valley. That one has Steve Jobs. It's like it has Ashton Kutcher. I think that's his name. Yeah, I think that for me, I think that's probably one of the. I think it's one of the best movies on. There's Steve Jobs there. They talked about Bill Gates as well. But yeah, there's another one. Jobs 2013 is also very good. That's the one with Ashton Kutcher, 2013, and then Pirates of Silicon Valley. Those two movies. If you're interested, I call this thing out because you learn a lot from watching stuff too. So we read books and also watch movies and documentaries. Anyway, we've spent a lot of time talking. Nobody came up. I hope you had a great time. We listened to a very cerebral person today, Professor Tayo Adesina, and we said it was one who actually coined the name Amotekun for the Western Nigeria Security Network. He was also able to get a professorship at University of Manchester that's worth about $1 million. And he lectures at the University of Ibadan. He's a history professor, and it's been nice listening to him, and I hope you got one or two things from the conversation we had. We'll be here tomorrow, and I think we're going to come back home from professors. We shall listen to ourselves tomorrow, 4 p.m. Ife time, West African time, Wednesday. We'll have a great time together. A very interesting topic that I think we're going to discuss. All right, it's ready already. It's ready already. So we'll have a great time together, okay? So please join us 4 p.m. Ife time, West African time. Somebody sent a request earlier. If they're still there, I'll just bring them up. Okay, it's this copy. We'll have this copy before we go. Good evening. I accepted your request to vote this copy. I don't know if it's your network. Hello? Hello, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, but very faintly.
Hello.
Yes, better now.
Okay.
Good evening.
Oh, good evening, everybody. Good evening, the house. I hope everybody can hear me.
Yep.
The house is off. It's big this night. All right. So I actually went. I was able to listen through to that professor's talk. I think I captured like 85% of it, right?
Okay.
So, but what I want to say is that times are changing, and times are changing very fast, right?
Sure.
There was something he said which really caught my attention because I could recollect growing up in the late 80s, right? Maybe 88 or something like that, right? So I could recollect then if my mom sent us out to go buy one or two things, and sometimes when we buy more than what we were supposed to buy, before we even get home, there is this person, I don't know, maybe as soon as we get home or something like that, somebody already sent the information to my mom that we have bought more than, like we've bought something that we're not supposed to buy. However we got the money, we were going to explain it, right? So what I'm trying to say is that was a society where it was a bit communal. But now, what we have here now is that we have gated estates. People are not interested in other people's business. over time. Things have changed. So my question is, how do we move with times and still achieve some of those things that were achieved that the level of decadence wasn't this much? Because to be honest, right, the society is so bad that even like barely if somebody that just turning a teenager is already dreaming of something that your great grandfather has never had. The society is ready to celebrate some group of kids that don't even know what they want to do with money, and they are everywhere making noise within the neighborhood and all that. So it's so bad that sometimes it touches me, it gives me a concern, and I feel, how do we how do we um how do we adapt? Because you can no longer do what was done in the 80s and the 90s. There is no more Baba Adubo and all that. How do we adapt such that we still capture that moment where people are responsible for others, and there seem to be level of sanity? That one bothers me. That's one of my questions that I ask myself. Then secondly, I keep asking myself, what can I do to also help the society at large? Because to be honest, we there's a point we all will be saying that, oh, this thing is common in the southeast, but gradually I think it's now everywhere. Though the level at which it operates in some parts, it's more than the others. In those days, Yoruba, we used to pride ourselves in, all this, it cannot be this. It has to be more. All those adages that they will say that you will ọmọdé ò lè kò lè láṣọ, that it's all about the wisdom. It's not really about the wealth. But now it's becoming more inverted. It's becoming more about wealth. Bringing your wealth, then we give you everything. Bringing your wealth, then you are the smartest. Everybody's willing to listen to you. Whatever you say, either it makes sense or it doesn't. In fact, when you are wealthy, whatever you say is going to make sense. That's the society we are in, right? I just probably just say one or two things. I mean, maybe we can learn from that, basically.
Thank you, sir. So there's something I do when it comes to history, especially when it comes to replicating some of the things that we've had in the past, is going to the core of the matter, not necessarily the actions. So for instance, I will look at why were they doing that thing and what's the concept of what they were trying to do, so that even if I don't have that action, I can at least, get the same result, or at least have the same vision that they had. So for instance, when it comes to what you're talking about, it's about communal living, so to speak. And if we live in gated communities and, the way we live these days, we may not be able to have that. But I think that we can have the exact same thing they're trying to get in another way. So the method may change, but the vision remains the same. For instance, one could have in churches, right? You have these groups in churches, young people brought together, and a lot of young people actually need mentors. It can be done in churches, and some churches do it, but I think it can also be done in the neighborhood, right? So it could be once a week. And I used to have a lot of, when I used to have a lot of time, I used to do it a lot. Every week, the kids will come around. Maybe I have to create more time for it again. Kids will come around and we'll talk. Of course, it tends to more towards Christian, but at the end of the day, it becomes something apart from their parents, somebody apart from their parents they can talk to in the neighborhood. And I think the idea basically doesn't have to be religious anyway, but the point is, one can't tell parents like, oh, we must raise these children together. But one could come up with initiatives that actually get kids together. And that way they begin to look up to certain people, and you're able to also become responsible for them and help them. So it could be like you're doing sports, right? Maybe once a week they come play football together, or you have a music class, or you are doing something in the neighborhood, or something that essentially brings the kids together and makes them, because it's primarily about them, not about the adult that want to do something. It's about what will make them, share and learn and be able to have somebody to look up to in society. So I think that, each person could do something that, and it could start with just maybe your the friends of your children. Like, they come around, they're able to be free at home, in your house sometimes. Maybe they watch a movie or something. Before the parents can trust you with certain things, they can even ask you questions, about the children. You also take like a duty, and I think you start with people's children's friends before you now start thinking of the entire neighborhood, because we cannot invest, so to speak, in the kids around. How are you going to be able to now do it on a? We're always thinking of NGOs, the big ones, which is important, but I think it starts, unless of course you want to go straight to that one. So personally, if you ask me, when it comes to communities, especially where we don't have, like where we grew up, I mean, I grew up in a normal space. Oh boy, I just remember something now. If you did something, somebody around could, buy a Wii, and your parents will come, and then that's not also from a buy Lucio. But I think that the core is to say that ọmọ èèyàn ní ojú méjì ló ń bímọ, ojú mẹ́rin ló ń bímọ, ìgbà ojú ló ń wò. In other words, how do you say that now? There's some things that if you say it in Yoruba, in English, you may lose the meaning. Okay, essentially what they're saying, by the way, it's metaphorical. 4 eyes give birth to kids, 200 eyes raise them. It's talking about the fact that you need an entire village to raise your child. So if that's what we're trying to do, it could be done in different ways. You just have to get creative, right? I hope that answers the question. And I hope that helps. So I think, like, right, if one reaches out to our real money, or just young people around, like create something that, and you have to, the work now is that if you're going to create it that way, you now have to have a structure. Maybe it's once a week or once a month, you just gather and talk. Apart from those gatherings, they will now begin to look out to say hi. I think that way personally. So you don't have to you don't have to create something similar to what I'm saying. I'm just saying that the only way to do it in a space where there is no kini is to actually have a program for the young people. It could be sports, it could be musical, it could be motivational, it could be anything. So it gets them together, and you're able to also inspire them and help them along with life. All right, I hope I answered your question. I can't remember the second one. I'm putting Remy. What's the second question, please, sir?
So thank you for that. The second one is basically, I mean, it's intertwined with the first one. So basically, I was just asking, like, what could we do, like, as adults, right, in our societies where we find ourselves? How do we help? It's basically it's more or less the same thing, really. You understand? How do we? Because if you look at it really in the real sense of it, sometimes when I see the rate at which the old social media thing, the old, okay, look at it for instance. Somebody echoed something like Dangote Olurimeji. It was something from a song, and those things somehow they have an effect on everybody listening to that song, most especially when your mind is still young and very pliable. All those things too. I feel like maybe we are pushing for too long when we say government probably should have maybe something to do about all this. Just come up with a song, come up with a concept. Everything has to do with money, girls, money. All those things too. They have all this impact. So in my mind, I also think that maybe those days too. Perhaps there were songs like that. Maybe it wasn't much, but I think now the crop of the song, like 89 or 90 something percent of what they listen to, or we all listen to now, it has to do with status, wealth. If it's not wealth, if you can't beat them, you join them. All those things, they are a very major factor, in actually shaping our kids, shaping the society, and it's just. I feel like maybe there should be pressure groups, there should be organized. It's because we need to actually, we need to get right before this thing becomes something we won't be able to handle. You understand what I'm saying? It's
Absolutely
going out of hands,
Absolutely. I think that every generation seems to think that the next generation is worse off than them, morally speaking. I've noticed that. It's just that you go back enough and then you see fella. So, and then you see him dancing on the stage with his many women.
You're right.
So, but there will always be alternatives. Like in our day, you have a lot of these kids just singing and everybody wants to get money. There's the influence of America and there's also poverty. And I think a lot of us move from a place of poverty. And it's a shame where the only thing that is pushing you to do what you're doing artistically is poverty. Because no matter how much money you have, that poverty will always be there. Unless you're able to get yourself out of that mindset. Poverty is more, in my own dictionary, is more, I mean, it's not good to not have money. Let's make that very clear. But a poverty mindset is worse than a person who doesn't have money in their pocket, because the one that has a poverty mindset, even if they have money, they'll keep singing nonsense because they have to they still think at that perspective. But to be honest, I think generally speaking, a lot of Nigerians are poor, and songs that are aspirational are songs that they like. That number one, they are able to, for a minute or two or three or four that song lasts, they're able to get out of that space of poverty and just escape. So it sells, and that's why people do it. So the way to do it really is not to even stop what they're doing, is to flood the space with something more positive so that what they're doing becomes irrelevant. So when we're growing up, we had songs where they sang all kind of things. Let me tell you, I thought about this a while back. And it also shows that young people are not very creative. And I'm sorry, but it's the truth. A lot of artists are not very creative. And it cuts across. You hear our worship songs these days, it's just one line. People just repeat the same thing over and over again. There's no verse. There's no coda. There's no bridge. Everything just one verse. They'll sing again and again and again. I'm like, okay, I don't know. How did I get here? I'll start talking about it as well go on. Somebody sang, I heard a song, the person sang it, very nice. After a while, I was like, what next? I had to change. I was like, okay, what's the next thing? You just repeat the same thing. There's no creativity. But here's what I'm even trying to say. Let's leave gospel alone. When we're growing up, there's a song that I think was it late 80s or early 90s? I think it was early 90s. That's when I sang. Pamurogodo láyé, pamurabate baba, onítìbí bá mi lálejò, wọ́n ti ṣe èyí sí, kì í jẹyán, kì í jẹrẹsì, àfomi òòjọ́, omi adùn, omi ṣòróró, ojú wẹ́líwẹ́lí, èyí. Do you know every single thing he said that thing was sex? It's sex. We sang it as kids. Our parents didn't even care because it was clean. Onítìbí bá mi lálejò. Onitibi, he's talking about being horny, or a girl comes around. But they're cooking, cooking rice, afomi ojo. He's talking about orgasm. Sperm. Now, do you know what it takes to write songs like that? That's a person who, number one, understands the language. Number two, knows that he's singing in the public, that children are going to hear what he's saying, and they'll still find a way to hide the real intention, but the elders know exactly what they're saying. It's very similar to what Boy Jays does on Twitter these days, where they are saying that, but this is not about food. The real issue is the creativity that it takes to do that thing is what a lot of people don't have the patience to actually do. Someone says, are you for real? Yes. Èyí yàtọ̀, kì í jẹyán, kì í jẹrẹsì, àfomi òòjọ́, omi adùn, omi ṣòróró, òjò wẹ́líwẹ́lí. Is talking about orgasm.
I'm not even sure my parents are aware of this thing you're saying.
Well, it's orgasm, it's squirting, it's sperm, it's all of those things. Now, someone said they were extremely subtle. Yes. Because number one, they knew they were in a society where in fact, some of us don't even understand even at this point. But I want to say in currency, they speak, you are trying to cover the ears of your kids because what they are saying, even you can listen. It's so raw. And you see, it's just to be clear, like I mentioned gentleman, a young guy, who does it on Twitter, but one man finish skits where they'll go and say things like things like that. Like, he's talking about the farm, but he's not talking about the farm, that kind of thing. But you understand?
I don't think that guy is not. I don't think that guy is even in Nigeria. Because of his
No, he just traveled. He actually just traveled recently. He's been in Nigeria all the while, but he's in the US at the moment. But they will code down that what that guy is doing. It takes a lot of creativity to do that. The idea of just shouting penis, kidney, vagina, just saying everything, that one doesn't require any. You don't need a lot of creativity to do that one. And I think people don't. I mean, there are many layers to these things. I'll give another example. A lot of songs that Sonny sang, right, were not composed by Sonny. Okay, whether it's one I just sang right now or because it will be able to focus on singing and performing, and somebody else will write. These days, somebody thinks they have to write and sing, and if you hear that Davido's song was written for him, you're like, he's not good enough. Not understanding the fact that many songs you listen to in the US were not even written by the singers. You have what's the song? I Look to You. The song by Whitney Houston was written by, what's the name of this guy? But R. Kelly. He wrote that. You have Diamond was written by Sia. People who write sometimes and not sing, but here people are always trying to act as if they have to write everything. There's a song, I think it's Speechless, that Michael Jackson wrote, that sang. It was written by R. Kelly. There's a song he wrote for R. Kelly, that R. Kelly wrote for Jackson. The point is, people also understand specialization. Like and some songs that they will sing abroad, for instance, sometimes, and the person who sang it, or let me put it this way, the person who that sang it may actually do a better job than the person who wrote it. I'll give you a very interesting example. I don't know if you've seen Bodyguard, the movie with Houston, and she sang the song "I Will Always Love You."
I remember. It's quite old though.
But that's not the original song. The original song was by Dolly Parton. And the point is that so ẹlòmíì tó pé kó lè farabalẹ̀ kọ ibi tí mo lọ ni pé ẹni tó lè farabalẹ̀ kọ rú àwọn orin tá à ń sọ yìí ó ní nǹkan tó fẹ́ ṣe bí Àlàní tẹ́ ń sọ nínú comment section yẹn Àlàní nǹkan fẹ́ ṣe kó tó ṣe bí wọ́n ti máa ọ̀rọ̀ tó yẹ kán kóòdù yẹn wọ́n máa sọ mọ́rọ̀ it now became vulgar. If you watch Àlàní, it's, and I'm not following, but it's good. If you watch his kini, that's actually how we express ourselves when we want to talk about adult things in the presence of children. But the reason we do that is because there's a word I'm looking for. Oh dear, there's a word I'm looking for. Consideration. There's consideration for every member of society, so that the adult who is listening to that stuff is not selfish. He wants you to enjoy the AYD or just enjoy the art of it, but the message belongs to him as an agbalagba. So that takes us back to the point where whatever makes people just go out and just say lewd things and just talk and just, it's because, number one, some of them have been more influenced by rap, American rap, where they just talk nonsense. Number two, many of them are coming from a very poor space, not just, of course, money, but apart from money, mindset. Number three, I think a lot of attention has not been given to creativity, and creativity is not just about singing; it's also about writing. And some people don't know how to write. They should leave it alone. I don't even know why I'm talking about this, but woman do me because I like music a lot. People should just sing and do well. That's what other people write, so that they can have people that can actually write. And this cuts across every. I mean, we were here the other day when Beautiful Nubia said some people were copying his tune. And this is true. Now, this happens all over the world. People sample people's songs, but in Nigeria they'll use it and ask you that why can't we use it? It's not from God. This thing that we do Oluma affects Bukini. All of that now, let me just wrap up by saying this. I think the way it happens is we talk about it like this, but we have to be very careful. Number one, you don't want to kill people's creativity in the name of purity or cultural purity, which is what some people also do. I'm a Christian. I don't like lewd things. I don't like, rash things. But there has to be cultural expression. I want to say this to Christians because I think sometimes we should talk to ourselves as well. The Bible has 66 books. One of those books is Song of Solomon. If you read that book, I don't understand. If you read that book, if you're looking for erotic stuff, it's in that book. Why is it there? Because it was made by God now. People can express themselves. The idea is, can they be poetic about it? Can they be clean about it? Can they elevate it so that it doesn't belong to the gutters? Some people will always be in the gutters, but hopefully we can, have creative people that will, and you can do that by influencing people around you. When you notice that your young people are doing stuff, you can just channel the energy the right way, expose them to the right content, and hopefully we'll have a better space. But generally speaking, and by the way, to be clear as well, let me also add, it's not like our artists are not doing well; they are doing well. It's just that sometimes, in Kotu Dangwabi Mafe loud, but that's not to say that majority of our artists are not great. Many of our artists are very creative. They are doing fantastic stuff. I mentioned Boy Jace, and I mentioned that because of the particular thing I was saying that has to do with coding, sexual stuff. I think it does it very well, and there are many songs that will be kono. I know gosh, boy, I can't even talk more to. And then of course the thing. So lastly, the thing about money. To be honest, wherever you go in the world, particularly if it's a place where you're trying to escape, you have to talk about what you want to have. It's ambitious, it's aspirational. People are going to talk about money, but there has to also be that thing where it's something you want to have, but you're also grounded in like correct morality. So when you come around, let me give an example. When you hear Mufelo me, now that song, that context makes sense. Why? The person singing, his father is a billionaire. The guy on the street doesn't even understand what to say. He just wants to have money because the way he's interpreting that thing is that, oh boy, that John was shaking any to much or maybe get out. Went to corner on anything because so I think at the end of the day, I'm seeing a lot of things, Sha. To be honest, I don't think it's a government thing. Government cannot do anything about it. There was a time they used to have by the way, if my answer is not structured, it's because we're just chatting, okay? There's a time they used to have guys NFVCMB, something that has to be censorship. Yes. They used to have a censors board. And it worked, right? But there's the internet now. If you ban people on radio, which has been done for some artists, they ban them on radio. Let me ask you that are listening to me, when was the last time you listened to music on radio? I'm not saying you don't listen, but when was the last time you actually like, come back on radio? Maybe you are driving to work or whatever, you want to hear the news. For the most part, people want to listen to the news. Unless, of course, on the label, but in play with music. So if you ban people on radio, they will still watch them on YouTube. I just think at the end of the day, it's about people. We'll keep talking about things like this and also influence people that you have influence over. So if you're younger ones, excuse me.
Well, since we're having a dialogue and I'm the only representation of the people here, and nobody is
I'm a representative of the people too.
I'm the representation of your followership here. I'm speaking for everybody. Since nobody has come, I have one other concern. Right? I have one other concern, right?
Okay.
The concern is, when I started listening to you, I was able to understand the dynamics of how the propaganda shaped on the Yoruba culture, the history, and some of the biases that other culture has for us. When this man was talking, right, he talked about, the fact that some people came up with skits and they
Sorry. I just remember the second part of that song. Oní ti bí bá mi lálejò wọ́n ti ṣe èyí sí kì í jẹyán kì í jẹrẹ sí àfomi ọjọ́ omi tó róró òjò wẹ́rí èyí wọ́n bẹ̀rẹ̀ tìǹbù jẹjẹrẹ iná pitì iná pẹlẹbẹ alẹ́ òní ayàtọ̀ ìdájí òní ṣe é kó kájọ máa yáta yáyó yóò.
I have known that one since
Ẹgbẹ́
I was a kid. Yata yayo, I know that one.
So when you say yayo, it's talking about mourning. Everything in that song is about sex. I just remember the second part. Please continue.
Yeah, okay. So there has been, right. So what I'm saying is that he talked about the skit where they designate the people from the Southwest as the most fearful person, people that don't want trouble. They just want to enjoy life, and they are not interested in defending themselves, defending their territory. At a point, I'm beginning to think when you use the bystanders effect, I feel to an extent, I think he might be right, because there was this saying. I think you were the one that did that illustration, that when the society is tough man give birth to, I think the tough man, tough society. There was a way you did that illustration when there was a tough society.
Yeah, I will say later.
Right. So I think that might to an extent, right? It might be right, because I also want to know, how did he come to such a pass that it's almost becoming a national opinion right now, that anybody that wants to talk about joke skits, they always designate the Southwest as the fearful one, as the ones that they just have mouth, they only want to talk when the old trouble break out, they run away. How did we get here, per se? Is it the bystander effect, or are we saying that it's only the Southwest that has enjoyed so much economic balance that the kids are now the children, or the fruits of that balanced economy are now ready to just keep enjoying, and as such they don't want trouble, they just want to enjoy their money, run out of the country, as against people from the north with their core what will I call them, core generation of people that the society has been tough for them. So if you talk about people like that, what about people from the Southeast? Because the way they designate, the skit is everywhere, and it's creating an imagery, somehow. I'm serious.
All right.
If you get to a public bus, if somebody wants to talk, Yoruba, they will run away. Sometimes I will have to talk. I will talk about history, talk about war and all that. But how do we? I don't think we need to correct it anyway. But I'm just saying.
We need to correct it though.
Okay.
I did a video on that earlier today. So there's feedback, please. Sorry. So I did a video earlier today. We talked about this comedy. There's a comedy routine where one clown was insulting Yoruba women. I think we allowed it. Okay, we allowed it, and we allowed it because we felt we could afford it. But I will go back just a bit. Number one, Yoruba people don't like to fight, and the reason is because we fought a civil war for a long time, and since that time we just maintain our lane. Everybody just chill. But Toba Deleton, the people that are calling you cowards, was it not the same Benjamin Adekunle with his 3rd Marine Commando Division that actually decimated many of their own people? And many of the people in 3MCDO were Yoruba. And this was not ancient history. This is 1967 to 1969, 69 thereabout. Alabi Sama was there. Alani Akinrinade was there. Olusegun Obasanjo was there. Where were their own fathers? Running around with their tails tucked between their legs all the way to Côte d'Ivoire. Let's make it very clear. The people that are doing it for the most part are actually projecting. But we allowed it because we thought we could afford it. Doesn't really affect us. It doesn't really Not 1970 January was when the war ended. Benjamin Adekunle had left. Obasanjo had taken over before the war ended in January. That's why I said 68, 69 thereabout. But the war ended in January 1970. We took it because we just took it and said, but now we know that it's not just a joke. It's becoming like a national identity now. Where was say things like, oh, these people. I know the truth of the matter is that the person who is saying you're a coward has no history of bravery. I would say the most are Igbos. Let's make it very clear. And when they talk about Igbos, say, oh, they are selling, they are always making money. Where is the money? Singlet with 1 billion naira, boy, singlet in the week. That one you do it because the person is also suffering. So you look for something to make if you notice, let's even talk about this thing. If you notice, the ones that they prop up is the one who suffered, and they're trying to actually give him something in terms of let me say something this way. There's a lot of things I want to say, but I'm trying to stop myself. If I start talking about the greatness of Igbo today, I can assure you I'll be collecting lots of gifts on this TikTok or YouTube everywhere. If I start it today, and if you think I'm lying, I can't do things just for money. But if I start telling you that, oh, they are great, nobody has come like that, they are the Guinea of Lion of Judah, I bet it's from low. It shows that there's something wrong with people's psyche. So what Nigeria has done over time is to try to make up for the deficiency by saying, let me tell you about what you are good at. And that's why it's called, every time they're talking about them, it's like, oh, they can do this, they can do that. Because there is deficiency that came because of the war. For you Yoruba people, you can take it because it's not true. But apparently it's becoming true to the point where Yoruba people are keeping quiet and they will not even want to say stuff because they don't want to be seen as bad. That is a self-fulfilling prophecy. So no, it's a very important thing. We are not cowards. We don't even have a history of cowardice amongst ourselves. We have heroes. You don't have a people with heroes who are cowards. The folks who call, and I always ask, and Igbos do this a lot. Oh, you're a coward. I ask one question. In the beginning, I used to ask for five names. I would say, give me 5 names from Igbo land. Sorry, there's feedback. I'm gonna have to mute you. I'll mute you later. They'll say, I'll say, give me 5 names from your. Please mute. Thank you. I'll say, give me 5 names from your space, pre-colonial heroes that you had. Then I used to. Then later I cut it down to 3. Then you know what I said? Just 1. A people without bravery in their history, without a history of bravery, a people without heroes call you cowards. But you think it's just a joke. It's not just a joke anymore. All this comedy of Yoruba women are smelly. That thing can actually stay in your head as a person. The question is, a Yoruba person, is your mother smelling? Are your sisters smelling? So why do you think it's cool for them to throw jabs at your sisters and your mother? And the person who is talking to you is coming from a slum where they can't even afford water to bathe. It's not funny. So we should not be saying, taking. I did a video on it that is on YouTube, on Facebook now. They say in fact they are even there insulting or say it's true. They use words like red, brown roof. Ingbati brown roof one. Thought bear is one. Excuse me, please. Ingbati brown roof bear is one bad. Ewe no fin se really àwọn Arabi now. And then they say, why do you have so many brown roofs in Ibadan? Because there's land. Oh, why not pull it down and rebuild it? Why should I rebuild when there's land to build another one? All over Yoruba land, there's land. I travel to different parts of Yoruba land and you see people because they're still building because there's land. A person who has scarcity back at home, can you hear me? Oh, kilo shelle.
The host has gone. So let me be the host. Tonight I have all the energy to host this program. Once he comes, I'll go.
Shane, call me back. Can you hear me now? Hello? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, good. Sorry about that. I had to move from the other device. So I was saying that at the end of the day, the people who... So again, I don't like insulting people's ethnic groups and stuff, but I don't think it's necessary. But I don't think people should be having fun at my expense, especially when it's a trope that can become, and it's true, it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. I've seen young people actually act in very cowardly ways, and I'm like, you are proving the point. Not that this is not who you are. It's not. Think about it like an eaglet, right? Tosha, for one reason or the other, found itself amongst chickens, and they found a way to convince the eaglet that it's a chicken. The eaglet, never flies beyond a particular level because they've told that we are all the same, and the eaglet is trying to prove that we are all the same, until one day, hopefully, the eagle calls from the skies and say, you don't belong there. Fly, flap your wings, and come up, ascend. I think a lot of young Yoruba people need to be told to ascend. We've mixed, and I'm not throwing jabs at anybody, but to be honest, there's a lot of chicken nonsense going on in Nigeria where people just assume we're all at the same level and then take opportunity to throw jabs at you. But the reason you can take it is actually because you are higher. Because I can assure you, if you have jokes at the expense of certain people in Nigeria, we will not hear the end of it. We've seen it on social media. You cannot say that about our people. You can't say that. You can't say that. You can't say that. We are offended. But you will say nonsense about others. Now, is it true that everybody has jokes about different people or even slurs? Of course. When it becomes something that is now acceptable to the point where it has now become like mainstream, I think it's important for people to speak up and say no. I think that's the only thing I caught from what you said. I don't know the other things you said, but I hope with these few points of mine, I'll be able to convince you and not confuse you that the idea of, having jokes at the expense of Yoruba people, Yoruba women, talking about, and that one used to pay me, would say Yoruba women are this, that clown whose video I shared, because that guy is a clown, he's not a comedian. I was like, Yoruba women, they are cheap. Like, just because we don't sell our daughters does not mean that they are cheap. It's actually because they are so valuable, they are invaluable. You can't even place a price on them. That's why. I mean, Yoruba is a place where you go to get married to a girl, you take the bride price, you give it to the parents return it to you and tell you that we're not selling this child. Because, I mean, back in the day, it was symbolic. It could just be one coin. You could just take a coin. Just symbolic, like, okay, also, of course, you bring fruit and yams and orishishi and so on and so forth. But the idea is that Omoyi is valuable. It's priceless. The child is priceless. The daughter, the lady is priceless. It's not someone you're just going to put a price on. Now, if you put prices on people in your place, it's not bad. It's your culture. Whatever you do is fine. But how can you be Yoruba where you have that kind of culture? People come around and just scatter death on your moms and your sisters and your friends, and you're laughing. And I'm saying this to Yoruba people. I don't care about the people that are laughing at your expense. It's about you. You are laughing with them. They will say things and they will laugh. You know, say, like, you draw the line in the sand, like, no, on this matter, no. Oh, you're not fun in parties. I don't care. You can't be throwing shades at my parents, because that's what they're doing. They're saying, all Yoruba ladies, that's your mother, that's your sister, that's your aunt, that's your daughter. That's every female connected to you. So I think it's important to we can have fun. Let's try and laugh at your mom. Hopefully that will be very cool. And then you still discover that they don't like that kind of joke. So why put it on me? So thank you very much. I really have to go now. The battery is even almost dead. Go to local. But Banks wants to come up, so maybe very quickly. Hello, Banks. Vote copy. Please finish up vote copy. Then we have Banks, and then we'll call it a day. Thank you.
All right. lastly, right? I need to once again appreciate you, right? I think I joined your platform like maybe a year ago or 2 years ago. I think you've really been able to bring out the Yoruba in
Wow.
me. If you check me 3 years ago, I was that guy that would be in the midst of Igbo friends because I finished from University of Lagos, and Lagos is very cosmopolitan. We were doing it in such a way that the way we were even in school, in such a way that we don't even want the Igbos to feel less involved. And it got to a point that one guy was saying that he opened his mouth and was saying that Yorubas are very of Lagos. You think it's just federal? This is a Yoruba-owned college and school. The argument became intensive, and at the end of the day, I cowered in because I didn't have anything to say per se. I just kept quiet. But when I started listening to your program, maybe 6-7 years outside that time, or ahead of that time, I really understood a lot of things, and it gives me a lot of confidence to be able to defend myself, defend my territory, and defend my people. And I should tell you, it's been an eye opener, and I've actually recommended it for a lot of people. But great job, sir. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. I really do appreciate it as well. Thank you so much. And I think at the end of the day, it's about preserving what's ours and protecting what's ours and our women and our heritage and so on and so forth. It's not about hating anybody, but if you hate my women or my heritage and I'm protecting my heritage, that means that you hate me, and that means that you are the hater. And if you hate the fact that I'm protecting my own, that means that you are the thief, because thieves are not people protecting their property. So I think that's just it. And the funny thing is that you see these folks back at home, they are vicious about their spaces. And it's just a way of life. People, and the funny thing is that no matter how you open yourself up, they will keep pestering. They want more. And they want it at your expense. And you have to give it to them to prove to them that you're a good person. And I've said it several times. I am a good person. If you think I have to prove it to you, something's wrong with you. I will never have to prove my goodness to anybody. Because people they come and prove it. They are trying to gaslight you. You spend your entire lifetime proving nonsense. Don't prove anything. Be kind. Be fair. Be good. That's it. Don't be nice. Just do what you have to do. Make sure you are fair. In your own heart, you are good. People around can also tell that what you're doing, you're fair. If the other person now says, I take offense, it's free. You can take it. I don't care. All right. We have Banks now. Good evening, Banks.
Good evening, Prof.
Yes, sir.
Edition is another.
It's been a long time.
Happy New Year.
Same to you. Yes, sir.
So you've said a lot, to be honest, and that's what that gentleman has expressed a lot of things. You see, for some of us that know these people very well, I hope you know the people I'm referring to. So for some of us that know these guys very well, there's something about them. You see, they have no consideration for other people. I know you've talked about consideration this evening, talking about some of these musicians, the way they even consider children when they sing, so that they don't corrupt the minds of this young one as well as possible. So even let's leave children out of this. You see, these people are very brazen in doing what we will consider as unacceptable to other people, like openly displaying tribalistic traits in places of work, in marketplace, even in churches. Things that we will consider and say, I know now, this thing doesn't, it's too obvious that I'm being nepotistic, or it's too obvious that, no, they do it to your face, right? They don't care. And that's why they think we're a coward, because when you are too considerate, when you tend to reason, like, what do people say? So they think that's cowardice, because they understand being beaten. Like, you get this big stick and pummel them very well. You understand? But when you carry big thing and you say, why should I be pommeling an elderly person, an adult? This is not good. It doesn't even look good on me that I'm doing the pommeling or the beating. But because you are even considered, you have this self evaluation within you that no, it doesn't even look. And you have people say, ẹgbà ọrùn kò yé adìẹ àbí nǹkankan pé ó tiẹ̀ yé adìẹ gan ẹni tó so mọ́ ọrùn adìẹ gan ni ò tiẹ̀ yẹ. When you are pulling, when you put a rope around the neck of a chicken and you are dragging it, Yoruba people say it's not befitting on that chicken. They now say in some cases it might even be befitting to that chicken. It's not befitting on the person that is dragging the chicken. Yoruba people have that ability to introspect and think and say, no, this thing doesn't look good on me. How will people, for posterity's sake, it's not good. But these people don't think about posterity. They don't care. So you that you are thinking about posterity, they think it's cowardice. They think it's weakness. That's where these things are coming from. It's not coming from physical ability or mental ability or ability to achieve. Who achieve more. Even when you are talking about physical abilities, do they have equivalent of people like Anthony Joshua? Do they have equivalent of all these very physically strong guys, even in the military? No, they don't have answer to that. Intellectually, before you check outside the country, before you count one of their own achieving exploits in America or in UK or anywhere in the world.
Let's begin to wrap up, please.
Okay, you will have counted like 5 of us. So do cowards do that in industry, in commerce, talking about the billionaires? Cowards don't achieve those things. So there's something lacking in them that makes they lack that humanity that makes it them think that because you have it, then it's a sign of weakness. So thank you very much, Prof. God bless you.
Thank you very much, sir, for that submission. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I did not read some comments on YouTube. I apologize to folks on YouTube. I'm just going to quickly read it, and I'm going to close up with something that Vodi mentioned earlier. Someone says that Ishekiri people Yoruba. Yes. Omundara Ogundare says the issues of thuggery and hooliganism are a menace in our society. Okay, I think she was talking about the video we're listening to earlier. And I'm rushing, so Oladetunde says this is a revelation. No, that was hiding vulgarity in heightened language. I think I was talking about Sonia Ade's song. And then I'll Always Love You by Dolly Parton. Yes, that's the one that Whitney Houston did. Power of Love by Jennifer Rush. Thank you. Okay, I'm seeing Black Scorpion. Oh, you guys have been talking a lot about. I apologize, I didn't see. Well, I wasn't looking at the stuff. Someone says Colonel Banjo that proved his love for them. How did they reward him? Ojukwu was not even magnanimous enough to tell his children where he had buried him. And I say that it can't be said in English because, I mean, what Victor Banjo went through. People who don't care about it, they're just gaslighting you. You would, even if you die proving yourself, they will tell the world that you were doing it for you. Do you know people actually said, this was yesterday, someone was telling him that Victor Banjo did it because Muslims are trying to kill Yoruba people and trying to colonize people. Like, they don't even care that it was really on the side of the Igbos. Anyway, let me wrap up with what I was supposed to read Facebook as well, Abby, before I wrap up. So let's see Facebook. We're not streaming on Twitter today. Hopefully next time. 1 second, please. I'm trying to get to Facebook. We have some comments here. Not so many. Comments will appear. Okay, we'll wait for it to appear. All right. There's something Vodis Copy said earlier, and I think it's a quote that I often talk about here. It's by Michael Off. And this is what he said: hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. Is a cyclical theory of history, right? The idea basically is that hard times, when things are tough, it creates strong men. Those strong men, because they are great and strong, they create good times. The good times most likely will create weak men, and those weak men will create hard times, so that their own children will not have to be born in hard times in order to become strong men. I think it's the reality, but it doesn't always have to be the story. But generally speaking, I think we can get to a particular point, like what Vodisco was trying to say. We can get to a particular point where you become complacent and everything happening, and you just become like a bicycle about things because you feel everything is done. You Bible, I, yo. Okay, but I tell you, your budget, thankfully. But we have to check it, right? The things that we have because of and it may not look like much. It may not look like much because you're comparing yourself with the US and UK and say, well, see where we should have been. And you are right to do so. Okay? But if you ever go beyond that and start saying, oh, our father should have done better, then you are having a problem. You are becoming the weak man. It's only weak men that blame their fathers. They will never agree they are weak, by the way, but they are very weak. Whatever makes you say, my father should have done this, if you had done this, I would not have done this, you are weak. I'm talking as a society. The things they did, that's the leverage that they didn't have. And I think we should also, you disagree, don't worry, it's okay. As a society, especially as Yoruba people, if you say, our Lord should have done this, I think you are weak. And I'll tell you why. You are not taking responsibility for the next generation. You're only complaining about what you should have had. The funny thing is that what you had, your fathers did not have. I'm talking all things being equal. I'm not talking about this irresponsible father. I saw somebody wrote disagree. I'm not talking about irresponsible men. No, I'm following the cycle of good, strong men creating good times. So I'm not saying if you ever have issues with your father, you are weak. Some fathers are just terrible, and some mothers are like that too. So there are people like that. So again, there will always be outliers, but they are the exception to this rule. The rule is that there are good men who created stuff but wasn't perfect. Now that it's not perfect, we can't say they should have done this, especially if you have now, like in your 20s, you can still talk until you're like 26, you have to start changing. When you get to like 30, 40, 50, and still blaming your fathers, there are children on the ground already now. You can't be talking about my father should have done this when you have children of your own. So the point is, one of the things I do, because myself and my siblings, we talk about my dad sometimes. Of course, there are things he could have done better. This is not to say that there's nothing to blame. There are some things they could have done better. But the things we have, they didn't have. Which means that we are better positioned to do the things that we think they could have done better, so that our children would have leverage than what we have. Every generation should be better than the last one. That's the point. Not this cycle. We should make sure that this cycle doesn't happen in our society where they've created these good times. And by the way, it's good. If you think Yoruba land is not good, again, it's not perfect. You may not think it's much, but go anywhere else. Someone says it doesn't matter, Brucey, when you found new information. Imagine having information you've never heard before. I don't get what you're saying. What I'm saying basically is this. Oh gosh, I think I'm looking at the comment section. I have to run. The point I'm trying to say is that weak men would rather bicker and complain and moan than build, and that's what makes them weak. If you acknowledge what your fathers should have done, you acknowledge it, that's okay. Your job is not to sit down and complain about it. Your job is to actually fix up so that your children don't have that same complaint. And I hope we got that message. That's the message. So Michael Love says, hard times create strong men strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. Why? Because rather than build on the foundation of their father, they just sit down and be insulting. Why is this guy taking so personally? Geeky, I don't even know you. I'm not talking to you. No, you're not weak. I don't think you're weak. But I'm just wondering how, maybe it has something to do with you. Again, to be fair, it's not a blanket statement. It's just that our job as the next generation is to make things better for the next one. But I'm not saying you're weak. By the way, if you also notice, I don't like negative messaging, so I don't like trying to put people down. I'm just saying that generally speaking, our job is to make things better for the next generation. So not to say anybody is weak. I'm sure you're strong. Like you wrote as F, you're strong. But the way to prove our strength is to do stuff so that next generation can think about it. When you talk about your dad, I talk about my dad, like I said, I used to talk about my dad. I don't even know how we got here, but it's good. Talking about my dad with my siblings. But I think it's one of the greatest men that ever lived. And I know he has a lot of faults. And if you tell me to itemize my father's faults, I know many things I did wrong. But I think, I know he's one of the greatest men who ever lived. But that doesn't mean that I didn't see when in his hands. So I think I think it also comes with age. And when you become a father, let me just stop there, and become a dad, I think it also gives you perspective. But okay, it is well. I hope you get the message. Let's break that cycle, and let's not be too chill to the point where we just make the place worse for our children. May God help us. You only budget or Nigeria not only budget. Not only budget will keep getting better. You know what? At this point, I'm going to have to read some of the things that Giki is saying. Some keep their secret and some release it. Oh yes. Why do we keep our father's secrets? Because legacy. We also protect their shame. See, when you have children in Jesus' name. When you have children, I think life looks different. I don't know. I mean, when we start having children, particularly when your kids get to a particular age, like as I'm like, whoa, so this is what I did. So you just see things. Nobody's perfect, not even me while I'm speaking. I am not perfect. May God help all of us. Thanks for being part of this session, and I hope you had a great time. I'm going to play the anthems now because I feel like hanging out with you a bit longer, but got to go. Here's the Nigerian anthem. Please enjoy, and let's sing along. Then we'll have the Yoruba anthem afterwards. We'll be here tomorrow, 4 p.m. Hopefully we won't stay this long. We'll be here 4 p.m. Ife time, West African time, and I'm sure we're going to have a great time together. Enjoy the national anthem. National anthem.
Nigeria, we hail thee, our own dear native land. Though tribe and tongue may differ, in brotherhood we stand. Nigerians all are proud to serve our sovereign motherland.
Àwa ni ìmọ́lẹ̀ ogun adúláwọ̀, ìmọ́lẹ̀ wọ̀ ní wọ́kùn lágbára Ọlọ́run. Ilẹ̀ Yorùbá ò ní bàjẹ́, Nàìjíríà náà ò ní bàjẹ́, ilé wa náà ò ní bàjẹ́. Whatever you lay your hands upon will prosper. May God help you to be the solution to the problems that we talk about in Nigeria. And may your ideas work and may you find fulfillment. Thank you for being part of today's session. I'll see you again tomorrow. It's 4 p.m. Ife time, West African time. So we're going to start playing music on TikTok. They will get off folks on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter in much later. So thanks so much for being part of today's session. I'll see you tomorrow again, 4 p.m. Ife time, West African time. Have a lovely, lovely evening. God bless you. Odaro. God bless you.